Chapter 121, Purification Ceremony. If I become your Miko, can I solve the problem of the Shiken Jewel? Kikyo, who said this, had already broken her own bottom line. A god who cannot help people is no longer useful. That's what Kikyo believed. Lynn smiled. The moment she said that, he knew it was settled. Lynn picked up the Shiken Jewel again, drawing Kikyo's gaze. The uncontaminated Shiken Jewel was also one of the reasons Kikyo was willing to trust Lynn. Whether it can be solved or not, you'll see it with your own eyes. Lynn's words left Kikyo momentarily stunned. Then, she watched as Lynn's glowing hand reached inside the Shiken Jewel. Thanks to the power of the Spirit Seer Devil, Lynn noticed something unusual about the Shiken Jewel the moment he acquired it. Inside were human souls, as well as a large number of vengeful spirits from monsters. For a Spirit Seer Devil, it was a perfect match. His glowing hand stirred within the Shiken Jewel, and then he touched something soft. Lynn's expression shifted slightly. He grabbed the soft mass and pulled it out. Puff! A round object emerged from the Shiken Jewel. Kagura froze for a moment, then looked down with a complicated expression. Kikyo also seemed at a loss for words. The thing in Lynn's hand. Why does it look so similar? Lynn paused, then exerted more force. A soft moan came from the Shiken Jewel. With his next movement, a woman in a shrine maiden's outfit suddenly appeared inside the thatched hut. Having been pulled out of the Shiken Jewel, Tsuko blinked in confusion. Midoriko-sama. Kikyo was visibly shaken. She was actually seeing a living idol. Kikyo's voice brought Midoriko back to her senses. She looked around in confusion, then looked down and gave Lynn a gentle smile. Sir, I truly appreciate you rescuing me from the Shiken Jewel, but... Midoriko looked at the large hand on her chest and awkwardly said, could you, please let go of my... Lynn shrugged. Sorry, it was just easier to grab. Midoriko pursed her lips and didn't speak, then glanced at the Shiken Jewel with a complicated expression. After I was gone, the Shiken Jewel really did become unstable. The Shiken Jewel began trembling violently, and its malevolent aura started spreading. Seeing this, Midoriko sighed. It seemed like she was fated to continue battling the monsters inside the Shiken Jewel forever. Just as she was about to dive back in, Lynn grabbed her arm. Since I saved you, you're mine. Midoriko was stunned, then said anxiously, but... Before she could finish, she saw Lynn reaching into the Shiken Jewel once more. A clump of twisted monster consciousness was slowly being drawn out. Wait! Midoriko cried out, stopping him. If you let them out, the whole world could be in danger. The whole world? Lynn chuckled. You're overestimating them. At most, they'll cause trouble in Japan. Well, just a bit of trouble. That already sounds really dangerous. Kagura trembled slightly. Even Kikyo grew nervous. These monsters exuded a powerful aura. Lady Midoriko. Has she been fighting this level of monster all this time? If it were her, she probably wouldn't last a minute. Ha ha ha. Midoriko. Are you trying to run away, Midoriko? As soon as the monster consciousness appeared, it screamed at Midoriko. You're scared. You're finally scared. Ha ha. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. Multiple voices rang out at once, making Kagura's eardrums tremble slightly. Lynn stared at them, eyes gleaming. This was definitely a supplement. Spirit devouring. Buzz. The monsters, who had just been shrieking, suddenly twisted in agony. The Spirit Seer Devil's special effect against spiritual beings made this an easy task. Wait. Sensing their impending demise, the monster consciousness cried out, what are you doing? What are you going to do to us? Lynn ignored their pleas. He just continued to twist and compress. Spare us, spare us. We can help. The voices grew faint and eventually disappeared. Clack. A purple bead, similar to the Shiken Jewel, fell onto the table. Lynn picked it up, flicked it into the air, and popped it into his mouth. Crunch, crunch. Chicken flavor. Crunchy. Midoriko was left dumbfounded. There were so many powerful vengeful spirits sealed in the Shiken Jewel. And he just ate them. Kikyo also stared silently at the now dull and lifeless Shiken Jewel, which had turned into an ordinary bead. Lynn's method was simple, crude, and violent. But this only proved how unfathomably powerful Lynn was. To her, even her idol, Midoriko, had struggled and barely managed to seal those spirits. But against Lynn? They couldn't even fight back. Maybe it wasn't such a bad thing to become the Miko of someone like him? Midoriko's expression kept changing. She knew more than Kikyo did. And she understood that to some beings, even powerful monsters meant nothing. But that was the consciousness of 7 or 8 great monsters. Some were even from different species. When combined, they far surpassed any individual monster. If not for the unique nature of her soul and spiritual power, sealing them in the Shikan jewel wouldn't have been possible at all. Yet in the end, Midoriko stared at Lin with complex emotions. Just who was he? After swallowing the monster consciousness, Lin's brow twitched slightly. No wonder the Shikan jewel was coveted by so many monsters, even great monsters. Even a single monster's consciousness had pushed his strength at the Satan class devil level up a notch. What an excellent tonic! Alright, now that that's done, next. After enjoying the experience boost, Lin looked at the two shrine maidens and the trainee with a grin. Let's talk business. Hearing that, Kikyo didn't hesitate. She met Lin's gaze and said firmly, I will serve you, Lord Lin. In her heart, Lin who had solved the problem of the Shikan jewel was no different from a god. And Kikyo was not someone who went back on her word. Lin clapped his hands with a grin. Kikyo, you're really a woman of your word. Then he turned to Kagam. Kagam hesitantly raised her hand. Me too. Finally, the three of them looked at Midoriko. Midoriko. She fidgeted awkwardly. What is going on? Will you be my Maiko? Lin extended the invitation. Maiko. Midoriko blushed. She obviously understood what Lin meant. Serve him? But, after a moment of thought, Midoriko hesitantly said, alright, okay. She agreed that easily. Kagam looked at her in surprise. Midoriko had her reasons. First, she was already dead. What remained was just her soul. Second, Lin had pulled her back from that endless suffering in the Shikan jewel. She was sincerely grateful to him. And more than that, he had also resolved the Shikan jewel's issue. So, offering this useless soul to Lin was the only way she could repay him. Seeing this, Lin nodded with satisfaction. 3 more joined his peerage. And their quality was exceptional. Besides Kagam, Kikyo and Midoriko were both powerful shrine maidens. Especially Midoriko, she had been able to hold her own against the monster consciousness in the Shikan jewel using just the power of her soul. Lin couldn't wait to draw rewards. In that case, take off your clothes first. Kagam was dumbfounded. Take off our clothes. Kikyo also fell silent. Midoriko opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but finally lowered her head with a strange look. Can a soul even take off clothes? Just as she was thinking that, the clothes on her body suddenly disappeared, revealing her fair skin. Ah! Midoriko hurriedly hugged her body, trying to cover key areas. Her face was burning. Kagam looked at her with a complicated expression. As expected, she's an adult. Midoriko's speed at undressing was astonishing. So bold. Even Kikyo looked at her in disbelief. The idol in her heart had completely collapsed. Lady Midoriko. So you're that kind of person? Midoriko panicked, flailed around for a moment, and finally managed to put her clothes back on. Then she stared at the ground, blushing, tapping her toes lightly. But she passed through it without resistance. The simple thatched hut suddenly became silent. Eventually, Kikyo broke the silence. With a look of realization, she nodded. I understand. This must be a purification ceremony. Upon hearing that, Kagam also seemed to realize something. There was such a record in the teachings for shrine maidens. Her family ran a shrine, after all she'd heard about it before. A purification ceremony was a ritual meant to cleanse body and mind in preparation for the arrival of a god. Lin's request actually sounded reasonable. Kagam nodded. Yes. A purification ceremony. Lin remained silent. Was that what he meant? With the explanation out in the open, Midoriko, Kikyo and Kagam all let out sighs of relief. Kikyo spoke up, there's a natural hot spring not far from the shrine. We can perform the purification ceremony there. Wow! Kagam's eyes lit up. A hot spring. Midoriko also longed for a hot spring bath, but she wasn't sure if a soul could feel it. Suddenly, 3 expectant gazes turned toward Lin. Lin nodded. Then let's head to the hot spring. As for whether this was really a purification ceremony, seeing how excited they were, Lin didn't spoil the moment. Besides, as their god, it made perfect sense for him to observe the purification ceremony, right? He hadn't had a hot spring bath in a while either. This would be a good chance to relax. Shrine, back mountain. Kagam looked around. Where is it? Where's the hot spring? Kikyo smiled slightly and waved her hand. A barrier appeared. Buzz. Blue light shimmered faintly. Kikyo stepped forward and, as if passing through a bubble, vanished from sight. Kagam's eyes widened. That's amazing. Midoriko floated nearby, holding her chin and nodding in admiration. That's a clever barrier. I can't see through it at all. Hearing that, Kikyo re-emerged from the barrier. Ms. Midoriko, you flatter me. The two immediately launched into a discussion on barrier techniques, while Higurashi Kagam started to feel sleepy just listening. Alright, you two can keep the discussion going later. Lynn grabbed both Kikyo and Midoriko and pulled them into the barrier. Eh? Lynn, you're going in too. Kagome blushed, feeling a little shy. Lynn replied naturally, isn't the purification ceremony meant to welcome the coming of a god? If I don't go in, what kind of welcome would that be? I guess I can't argue with that. As they stepped through the barrier, Lynn's vision brightened. Misty steam floated around a wide hot spring that came into view. Not bad. Lynn nodded, a bit impressed. Then he waved his hand. All right, begin the purification. A while later, Lynn reclined in the hot spring, quietly observing their movements. The three Kikyo, Kagome, and Midoriko froze. Isn't serving the gods your duty as shrine maidens? Kikyo bit her lip, hands trembling slightly as she removed her shrine maiden attire. Her face flushed red instantly. Seeing the younger generation so decisive, Midoriko didn't want to be outdone. The benefit of a soul body became apparent. With a single thought, her clothes vanished. She hugged herself tightly, then leapt into the hot spring and let out a long sigh. However, she looked a bit disappointed. I don't feel anything. After all, she was just a soul. Lynn thought for a moment and beckoned to her. Seeing this, Midoriko's face turned crimson, as if it could bleed. She assumed Lynn was about to do something to her. But she took a few deep breaths. The moment she chose to become Lynn's shrine maiden, she had already prepared herself. This was her way of repaying the favor. Midoriko's eyes were firm as she flew toward Lynn. But she still couldn't bring herself to look at him directly. Seeing her shy expression, Lynn thought to himself. We should have brought Harino. If she were here, she'd definitely help them unleash their nature. Eventually, Midoriko approached Lynn. She averted her gaze. Lynn patted his thigh. Turn around. Hi. You're back. Midoriko's body trembled. She lowered her head and slowly turned around, even standing up slightly to make things easier for him. But then, as the evil piece pressed against her back, Midoriko's eyes widened in surprise. What kind of ceremony is this? Before she could react, a strange power surged through her body. Ah! Midoriko's eyes went wide. She felt. Her soul was gradually becoming tangible. At the same time, the system's voice echoed in Lynn's mind. Ding! You have gained Puridge member, Midoriko. Ding! Your Puridge member Midoriko has been reincarnated as a special class devil. Midoriko. Rank, Ultimate Class Devil. Race, Devil. Class, Bishop. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic power, I0. Class skill. Magic resistance. Inherent skills. Soul-eating war priestess, weapon refinement, refines soul-based weapons. Force Souls Devil. Wild soul, symbolizes courage, struggle, and strength. Harmony soul, symbolizes affinity, harmony, and compassion. Strange soul, symbolizes wisdom, rationality, and creativity. Lucky soul, symbolizes happiness, love, and vitality. Greatly boosts all base stats. Devil transformation, 4 souls mode. Seeing the blessing information appear on Midoriko's back, Lynn froze for a second. Ultimate class devil? Her starting level was that high? But thinking about it, it made sense. She had gone toe-to-toe with the collective monster consciousness sealed inside the Shiken Jewel. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic power, I0. Innate abilities. Demon-breaking power, spiritual energy that deals bonus damage to evil. Connecting Devil 1.0, a key that opens a dimensional link, currently linked to 500 years in the past. Devil transformation, connection gate mode. She's a key character. Kagome's blessing stats were ordinary. But connecting Devil was very useful. At the very least, future time travel wouldn't require the Bone Eater's well. And there were many areas in this world unreachable by teleportation magic. Hell, for example. If Lynn wanted to, he could have Kagome open a gate directly to Hell. Not bad. Very useful. Lynn patted her shoulder in encouragement. Kagome accepted the blessing sheet in silence, her face still warm. But she really had become a devil. She thought it was a joke at first. And Yukino and the others must be the same, right? Lynn's peerage. Now she finally understood why the Supernatural Investigation Club at Shuchen was entirely female. A full-on harem. Still, she'd probably be added to the club roster soon. But let them say whatever they want. Shihigurashi Kagome was from a different world, after all. Back mountain of the shrine, within the hot spring. It was now Kikyo's turn for her reincarnation ceremony. Lynn embedded the evil piece. A soft glow lit up her smooth back as her blessing information quietly surfaced. Kikyo. Rank, High Class Devil. Race, Devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic power, I0. Inherent skills. Demon breaking power. Spiritual power, special attack against evil spirits. Witch's combat skill. Grants use of witch techniques, rapid growth in agility and magic. Pure eradicator of tragic souls. Purifies spiritual power, special attack against all evil beings, immune to curse-type negative conditions. Purifying devil. The Unsullied, special attack bonus against dark attributes and filth. Devil transformation, environmental unstained coffin. Lynn. Looking at Kikyo's skill set, Lynn felt a bit conflicted. She was clearly a devil now, but she had too many skills hostile to devils. All those special attack traits. Lynn copied her blessing data and handed it to her, falling into thought. He couldn't shake the feeling. One day, would he be expelled from the devil race because of this? Kikyo looked over her blessing, her expression dazed. This kind of gift, really was something only a god could grant. While they were reviewing their blessings, Lynn also gave a brief overview of the current peerage situation. He mentioned talents, other worlds, and so on. Another world. Kagam's eyes were wide with disbelief. She'd already had enough shocks today. First, monsters suddenly appeared. Then she was rescued by members of the Supernatural Investigation Club. After that, she traveled through time and space with Lynn, only to be dragged into his harem and turned into a devil. The sheer amount of events left her mind spinning, it felt like her brain was full to bursting. And now, she was being told the peerage had access to other worlds for leveling up? Too much. You can really adventure in another world. Of course, Lynn nodded. The peerage's primary purpose was to grow stronger and return that strength to him. However, Lynn glanced at Kikyo and Midoriko. The worlds currently under his control didn't offer much challenge to high-class or higher devils anymore. That was starting to be a headache. Still, what's done is done. Kagam, are you ready for the arrival of the gods? Kagam blinked in confusion. Wasn't this just a purification ceremony? The arrival of the gods is part of the purification ritual. Kikyo and Midoriko both froze, clearly unsure what to do. Seeing this, Lynn spoke calmly, Kagam isn't experienced as a shrine maiden yet. You two should help guide her. Kikyo bit her lip, her voice barely audible. Understood. Warring States shrine maidens were strong. The next day, the hot spring had to be slightly expanded due to last night's ritual. Kikyo and the others floated in the water, eyes blank, their beautiful bodies coated in sticky fluid. Lynn exhaled in satisfaction. After the shrine maiden's night-long service, he felt completely refreshed, mind and body. Midoriko subconsciously stuck out her pink tongue and licked the sticky fluid from her lips. In the next second, her previously drained body regained vitality. The miraculous effect made her mutter, truly divine. Splash! Lynn rose from the hot spring. Kikyo and Midoriko immediately came to their senses and hurried over. Lord Lynn, allow us to dress you. Only Kagam was still asleep, drooling. Lynn finished dressing, then patted Kikyo's shoulder. Show me around Kaed village. Kikyo's face turned red. Yes. Kaed village. The sun shone brightly. Villagers worked in the rice fields. It seemed that yesterday's monster attack hadn't affected daily life. Everyone's already used to this kind of thing, Kikyo said with a tinge of melancholy. Since inheriting the Shikan jewel, Kaed village had long lost its peace. However, she glanced at Lynn, a rare tenderness flickering in her usually cold eyes. Her god had answered her prayers. Lady Kikyo. Along the way, villagers warmly and respectfully greeted her. Kikyo nodded indifferently, always keeping a respectful position beside Lynn to signify his noble status. Noticing this, the villagers glanced at Lynn with a mix of curiosity and fear, then quickly looked away. If even Lady Kikyo acted this respectfully, this man had to be someone of great power. Not to mention, the miracle he performed yesterday still echoed in their minds. He had to be a god. Yes. Lady Kikyo's god. Along the way, Lynn listened as Kikyo explained the local situation. Buzz. Suddenly, a shrill sound rang out. Lynn and Kikyo turned their heads and saw it, an insect resembling a wasp, with blood-red compound eyes and large pincer-like mandibles, was watching them from the shadows of the leaves. When it realized it had been spotted, it tried to fly away only to be shot down by Kikyo's arrow. Lynn observed the insect carefully. Kikyo. Yes. Kikyo lowered her head slightly. Do you know of someone called Naraku? Or maybe a demon called Anigamo? Upon hearing that, Kikyo frowned. After thinking for a moment, she shook her head. I'm sorry, Lord Lynn. I've never heard of them. I see. Lynn paused. It seemed that, although this world had changed, even with Kikyo not saving Anigamo, Naraku still appeared. So, the mastermind behind yesterday's attack on Kaed village must have been that little pest. He was probably after the Shikan jewel. Lynn guessed as much but didn't care. At best, Naraku was just a bug. No different than the insect Kikyo had just shot down. Still. Lynn rubbed his chin. Kagura and Kunna might be worthwhile talents to recruit into the peerage. It'd be troublesome to locate Naraku, though. After Lynn explained Naraku's existence, Kikyo murmured, so that's how it is. No wonder the monsters seemed oddly coordinated yesterday. Someone was manipulating them. A cold glint flashed in her eyes. Only dares to hide in the shadows. They chatted for a while longer. Lynn began thinking about how to make the most of this era. Since he was in the past, he couldn't waste the opportunity. But first, he needed to check in with Saiko and the others. This era of Japan had rich resources and monsters. Even some high-grade and great yokai. It would be perfect for Saiko, who had hit a growth bottleneck. Elsewhere. In a damp, dark cave, Naraku sat in the shadows, his expression grim. The Kaed village spy was eliminated. That human shrine maiden, and that man. Remembering yesterday, Naraku's body trembled slightly. The man's power had burned everything in an instant. For the first time since his creation, Naraku had felt real fear. Absolutely. He could not afford to provoke that one. Remain hidden for now. Wait until that man leaves. Not far away, Kagura stared at Naraku in stunned silence. He's trembling? It was the first time she had seen Naraku like this. Was it because of that man? Her thoughts stirred. She recalled the man who radiated divine power. Yet. So even Naraku has someone he's afraid of. Exhale. Kagura let out a quiet breath, her ruby eyes gleaming with something unreadable. Kunna silently watched her sister. Kagura, do you want freedom? A few days later. Using Kagam as the link, Lynn's peerage opened a time-space portal and arrived 500 years in the past for training. So this is what the world looked like 500 years ago. When Yuta received the news, she arrived immediately. Maintaining her blessing growth had been mentally exhausting. She heard there was a nice hot spring here? Maybe she could finally unwind. If only I could be with Lynn. Yuta breathed a little heavier, clearly imagining something suggestive. Saiko looked around and frowned slightly when she didn't see any monsters. I wanted to cut some down. Yuta. This woman's getting more and more twisted. Don't worry, you'll get your chance. Lynn's voice immediately brought calm to Saiko. Master. Midoriko, Kikyo take the peerage and explore the area. Find a few great yokai to help Saiko sharpen her skills. Lynn gave the order. The Gastria in the zombie world could no longer help Saiko level up as a high-class devil. This chaotic era was just right for her. Even if she had trouble dealing with great yokai, she had Midoriko and Kikyo, both natural enemies of demons. Lynn wasn't worried. Yuta eyed the three shrine maidens thoughtfully. Their Miko outfits were unexpectedly alluring. She suddenly felt the urge to buy a few sets of interesting costumes herself. Yukino glanced at Kagam, her expression complicated. Kagam, you really became part of the master's peerage. Ahaha. Kagam rubbed the back of her head awkwardly. Not only was she in the peerage, she had also been taken on the very first day. But there was no helping it. Serving a god was a Miko's duty. She quietly tried to convince herself. After wrapping things up, Lynn stroked his chin, preparing to visit the underworld of this era. But how do I get there? Lynn paused. At present, the underworld was in chaos and most routes were blocked. Traveling directly wasn't easy. He'd have to consult the all-knowing Miss Rias. Rias, you want to go to the underworld? Private Kua Academy, Occult Research Club. Lynn, why do you want to go to the underworld? She sounded curious. Still. Rias, sending you the coordinates. Lynn, thanks. I won't forget your kindness. Rias pouted. This guy, only good at talking. She had been looking forward to the date he promised. But nothing came of it. So, was it just empty words? Rias felt a little disappointed. Warring States period. Lynn received the coordinates from Rias. He hesitated. Can coordinates from 500 years in the future be used here? He gave it a try. And then. Nope. Doesn't work. Lynn, any other methods? Rias, if you can find the legendary Mido stone, you'll be able to open a passage directly to it. Rias, it hasn't been seen in a long time. Mido stone huh? Lynn looked at Rias' message on his phone and narrowed his eyes in thought. There may not be one in the modern era, but in ancient times. He happened to know a place. The Dog Demon clan in the Western Lands. Lady Sesshomaru's mother in Yakamai. It looks like a visit there is necessary. Western Lands. The battlefield between the Dog Demon clan and the Panther tribe was soaked in blood. Kill. Stupid mutts of the Dog clan. Let us show you the might of the Panthers today. Boom. Flesh and blood were torn apart amidst the cries of slaughter. The sounds of carnage echoed endlessly. The warriors of the panther tribe, bloodlust in their eyes, tore into the dog clan with fangs and claws, their massive forms charging across the yellow sands. But the dog demons were not to be outdone, revealing their true monstrous forms one after another. Agony, screams, and feverish cries of excitement filled the air. And behind the dog demon forces, a slender figure stood among the towering monsters. Long silver hair flowed behind him, ice-cold golden eyes focused forward. 2 crimson stripes flared on his cheeks like searing karma flames. A crescent moon of icy blue shimmered on his forehead. Lord Sesshomaru, the Panther tribe is on its last legs. Under your leadership, the western lands will soon know only one ruler. Flattering voices rang in his ears, but Sesshomaru didn't react. His golden gaze swept over the battlefield, disinterest flashing in his eyes. The Panther tribe was barely worth his time. He stood still, observing quietly. Until the chieftains here. Our leader has entered the battle. Ha ha ha, time for the dog clan to die. You're finished now. With our chief in play, victory is ours. A sudden shift shook the battlefield. A massive shadow descended, an enormous panther demon, over dozens of meters tall, crashed into the fight. Boom! Waves of sand surged into the sky. Roar! The panther's eyes glowed crimson. With a swipe of his claw, dozens of dog demons were shredded into pieces. HOH! Sesshomaru's eyes lit up. At last, a worthy opponent. In a flash, his figure disappeared. He reappeared midair, directly above the panther chieftain. With a burst of overwhelming demonic energy, Sesshomaru brought his fist down on the panther's skull. Bang! A dull explosion rang out. The panther's head caved in, his eyes bulging outward. It's Sesshomaru! Lord Sesshomaru has entered the battle. The dog demons roared with excitement. It's the terrifying noble heir. The panthers' voices trembled with fear. They had good reason, this guy was a killing machine. You little brat! The panther chieftain snarled, feeling humiliated at being struck like that. When I killed your father, you weren't even born yet. Buzz! The moment he spoke, his body erupted into azure flames. Sesshomaru narrowed his eyes and backed off, flying into the air with demonic power. The panther chieftain chased after him, riding demon fire into the sky. Seeing this, Sesshomaru revealed his true form. Boom! The 2 enormous monsters clashed, unleashing shockwaves that scattered the surrounding beasts. For a moment, neither could gain the upper hand. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the battlefield. A figure, trailing a blazing tail, crashed into the center like a meteor. The impact tore a massive crater into the sand, crushing dozens of monsters instantly. Blood soaked the ground. Sesshomaru's pupils contracted. In his true form, he was blown backward from the shockwave. The panther chieftain also fell, dazed from the blast. Pfft! Coughing up yellow sand, he glared toward the crater's center. Sesshomaru returned to his human form, golden eyes narrowing with icy focus. As the dust cleared, a figure with black hair and crimson eyes emerged. Lynn smiled politely. Can someone tell me where I can find Lady Inuyukamai? Having sensed the dog demon's presence, Lynn dropped in directly. Looking for my mother? Sesshomaru's brow twitched subtly. Huh? Are you that woman's new lover? The panther chieftain sneered, baring his fangs. You dare interrupt my battle? In a flash, he blurred toward Lynn, giant claws swiping viciously. Lynn glanced up and shook his head. The locals are so rude. Then, boom! The panther chieftain's enormous body twisted, contorted, and exploded. Scarlet blood sprayed across the sky. Sesshomaru's eyes narrowed sharply. I didn't see it. What just happened? The chieftain. The panthers stared in shock. In the blink of an eye, their mighty leader was turned into meat. Now then, can someone tell me where Inuyukamai is? Lynn wore a casual smile. But to the dog demons and panthers, it was like death itself was smiling at them. Silence fell. Lynn sighed, a little bored. Then his crimson gaze landed on Sesshomaru. Sesshomaru flinched instinctively. His body reacted with fear, on its own. First, his hand tightened subconsciously around his sword. But, huh? Surprise flickered in his eyes. My sword? Lynn was twirling it casually. Tenseiga. Sesshomaru. Is this Tenseiga? With a wave, Lynn casually dispatched several spirit messengers who had come to collect souls from the battlefield. And then, the monsters that had already died blinked in confusion, and rose from the ground. Only those with intact corpses stood again. Interesting. Lynn smiled. But, what happens when a world has no defined underworld? This would throw the system into imbalance, wouldn't it? Then again, the underworld was in civil unrest. No one was enforcing order. So loopholes could be exploited. Still, once you've taken something, there's no need to return it. He'd just bring these things back for his peerage to study. Maybe they'd discover something new. As for Inyakamai, Lynn looked up and smiled faintly. There you are. A streak of moonlight descended from the skies. Silver hair flowed like starlight, reaching her ankles. A deep violet crescent moon shone coldly on her forehead, and 2 vermilion demon marks adorned her cheeks. Inyakamai's expression was calm and regal. The moment she sensed the battle shift, she rushed over. Her cherry lips parted. Her voice was elegant and cold. May I ask what business you have with me? I'm here to borrow the Mido stone to the underworld. Lynn got straight to the point. The Mido stone. Inyakamai studied Lynn, then calmly removed the blue crystal from around her neck. Without hesitation, she tossed it to him. Sesshomaru opened his mouth to speak, but her sharp gaze silenced him. This man was not someone their clan could afford to offend. Better to stay quiet. Besides, Inyakamai had her own questions for Lynn. The violet crescent on her forehead pulsed faintly. Her cold voice rang out once more. You're not from this era, are you? Oh. Lynn, surprised, looked at the mark on her forehead. Was it because of that? You're right. He saw no need to lie. As expected. Her eyes glimmered. Since I gave you the Mido stone, may I ask something? Sure, Lynn replied casually. Does the Western Dog Demon clan still exist in your time? Lynn smiled. I've never heard of it. Inyakamai stiffened and fell into silence. So the Western Dog Demon clan was already gone? She touched her temple, the sorrow briefly surfacing on her otherwise cold face. She still cared about the fate of her clan's bloodline. As their princess, that was her duty. Lynn studied her with interest. The evil peace skill glowed on his panel. This woman was also a valuable talent for his peerage. And if a great yokai like her was reincarnated as a devil, she'd surely become the ultimate class devil. He had to find a way to recruit her. Inyakamai was quiet for a moment, then spoke. Your Excellency, do you have a way to bring others through time? Lynn's eyes gleamed. Oh? You want me to take the Dog Demon clan into the future? That's right. After learning her clan would be lost in history, Inyakamai came up with this solution. If the dog demons could spread across different timelines, they would never go extinct. But that would depend on the man before her. Inyakamai's golden eyes stared at Lynn nervously. He touched his chin and suddenly smiled. I could, but a mere Mido stone doesn't cover the price. Inyakamai. She took a deep breath. What do you want? Whatever the Dog Demon clan has, I will offer. They were rich, after all. Lynn paused for a moment, then smiled slyly. Are you sure? Inyakamai suddenly felt uneasy. Why? Did something feel off? Still. For the sake of her clan's survival. Her gaze turned resolute. I'm sure. I'm sure. Inyakamai's voice was cold and resolute. This was her responsibility as royalty of the Dog Demon clan. No matter the cost. She was prepared to give everything. Seeing her so determined, Lynn couldn't bring himself to reject her offer. He nodded. Then it's settled. Inyakamai blinked, unsure if she had misheard. What did you just say? She stared at him, a bit uncertain. You heard me right. I'm talking about you, Lynn replied calmly. What did he mean? Was the cost, herself? Inyakamai's mind reeled, trying to process it. Seeing her confusion, Lynn smiled. Would you like to become my peerage member? Peerage. Inyakamai quietly mouthed the word. Is it something like the bond between a god and a shrine maiden? She was well read and quickly caught on. So, he was asking her to serve him? Her eyelids twitched, her expression turning cold. She, a highborn princess, was being asked to submit in such a vulgar and humiliating way? Even if it was for the sake of her clan. Sir, we of the Dog Demon clan don't need your pity. Seeing that Inyakamai hadn't responded, the dog demons behind her grew restless. For the sake of their survival, they wouldn't let their princess sacrifice herself. They glared at Lynn in fury. Even Sesshomaru's expression turned cold as he took a step forward. No matter how powerful this man was, the pride of the Dog Demon clan could not be trampled. Even in death, they would never bow. Besides, facing overwhelming power only made their blood boil more. But Lynn simply smiled, and an overwhelming aura burst from his body. Ugh! The dog demon's eyes bulged, and with several thuds, they collapsed to the ground, unable to move. Under the pressure, even Sesshomaru's expression began to crack. He clenched his teeth, his body trembling, and then bam! Just like an ordinary soldier, he collapsed face first into the sand. Sesshomaru. Shame surged in his chest as his eyes reddened. Damn it! Faced with such power, they were no more than ants. The noble son of the Dog Demon clan, forced to bow. Even the Panther tribe, still grieving the death of their chieftain, weren't spared. They, too, collapsed into the sand with confused expressions. Panther tribe. And thus, only two figures remained standing on the battlefield. Inuyashi's expression was blank, but her heart tightened. Fortunately, her clan wasn't truly harmed. That realization brought her a moment of relief. But this man was terrifying. He was like something straight out of the underworld. She didn't know why, but Inuyasha suddenly found herself dazed. Still, Lynn wasn't unreasonable. He had borrowed the Mido stone. It would be absurd to turn around and kill them. But a little pressure was necessary. Lynn smiled as he looked at her. Was that your idea of a suitable offering? Is this your enlightenment? Inuyasha snapped back to her senses. Her fingers fidgeted as she awkwardly pressed them together. She had meant to offer much. But not herself. There were countless treasures within the dog demon clan, including rare ores and the bones of ancient beasts. Yet he only wanted her? Phew. Inuyasha sighed and forced a smile. Our clan has many treasures. Are you sure you don't want any of them? I could. Lynn grinned. But if you belong to me, then doesn't everything in the dog demon clan already belong to me too? Hearing those shameless words, Inuyasha's eyes widened. Her cold demeanor faltered. So that's what he was really after. She opened her mouth slightly, completely at a loss. Was this man even capable of shame? If you don't decide quickly, I'm leaving. Lynn's voice teased her like a devil's whisper. Was she really going to entrust herself to this man she had only just met? Inuyasha hesitated. This was about her people and her future. She had to be careful. But Lynn wasn't interested in waiting forever. Sure, Inuyasha was a rare talent, but she wasn't irreplaceable. Hadn't he left Natsuki Minamiya alone too? Besides, Inuyasha needed him more than he needed her. Lynn didn't hesitate. He began pouring magic into the Mido stone and a deep blue glow burst into the air. Buzz! A spatial rift to the underworld opened above. As Lynn poured in more magic, the rift grew until it could fit a single person. He gave her a wave and stepped in. Bye! Inuyasha, still frozen in hesitation, widened her eyes. Wait! As Lynn's figure faded into the portal, Inuyasha panicked, shifted into her smaller form, and leapt in after him at full speed. In the next second, the portal closed. The oppressive pressure vanished, and the dog demons and panthers let out sighs of relief as they slowly stood. Where's the princess? They looked at each other, having had their faces buried in sand the whole time. Don't tell me. She really ran off with that guy. Dog demons. The mood turned strange. Haha. Your princess just got stolen right in front of you. The panthers burst into laughter. Their grief evaporated. So what if they'd lost their chieftain? If the dog demon clan was humiliated, that was a win. Sesshomaru narrowed his eyes at them coldly. The man was gone. But you lot? You're fair game. His hand went to his waist then froze. Right. Tenseiga had been taken away. Ha! Now he was even angrier. Die! Sesshomaru could no longer hold back and charged toward the panthers. Underworld. Lynn looked blankly at the little white dog clinging to his shoulder. Inuyasha awkwardly dug her claws in. She had jumped in on impulse. Now what? If she remembered correctly, the underworld was in chaos right now. She often used the Mido stone to spy on it, so she was familiar with the situation. And right now, the underworld was in absolute turmoil. Inuyasha trembled slightly, but forced herself to act composed. I know the terrain here. I was afraid you'd get lost, so I followed you. So thoughtful. Lynn gave her a smile. I thought you were just eager to become part of my peerage. Inuyasha bit her lip, turned her head, and refused to look at him. But her little paws clung tightly to his shoulder. In the underworld, Lynn was the only thing giving her a sense of safety. Seeing such a human-like reaction on a little dog was amusing. Honestly, she was kind of cute. Her white fur, the violet crescent moon on her forehead, there was an unspoken elegance to her. She poked his shoulder. There's really nothing good here. Why don't we just go back? If you're scared, you can go back first. Lynn's response hit her like a hammer. Scared? Inuyasha glared, her pride flaring. She was the noblest royal of the dog demons. In an instant, her expression turned icy again. As if she had suddenly remembered her status. Boom! A massive explosion shook the distance. The magic radiating from it made Inuyasha tremble. Her cold act crumbled as she burrowed into Lynn's chest. Lynn raised a brow. Are you really royalty? Inuyasha peeked out with a slightly embarrassed look. She was always graceful and regal. But today was different. She'd allow herself this moment of cowardice. As they spoke, the source of the magic arrived. A woman with silver hair and a cold expression stepped forward fresh from slaying rebel devils. Grafia Lucifuge stared at Lynn, expressionless. Did you come to kill me too? She could tell how strong he was. But when she sensed his magic, she still approached. He wasn't someone she recognized. He didn't seem to belong to the old Mo faction. So, could he be her end? Grafia, tired of the bloodshed, almost welcomed death. Kill you. Lynn shook his head, smiling. No. I'd rather bring you into my peerage. He hadn't expected to encounter Grafia as soon as he entered the underworld. What kind of luck was this? Fated encounter, maybe? Grafia frowned slightly. In this chaotic era, the evil peace system didn't yet exist. So she didn't understand what Lynn meant. From Lynn's chest, Inuyukamai peeked up again. Is this guy the god of lust or something? Why did he try to make every woman serve him the moment he met them? Lynn noticed Grafia's confusion and decided to switch tactics. Would you like to be my queen? Queen? Grafia was stunned. Are you proposing to me? Lynn thought for a moment. You could see it that way. Grafia went quiet. This was a first. She'd spent so many years fighting, killing. And now, suddenly, this bizarre man came along. But... sorry. I still have unfinished business. Grafia politely rejected Lynn's proposal. But... she wouldn't forget this odd encounter. She stared at his face one last time. Not a bad-looking man. If this war ever ends, maybe I'll consider marrying you. With that, she turned and headed for her next battlefield. You got rejected. As she watched Grafia walk away, Inuyukamai poked her head out, her tone tinged with teasing. Lynn looked down at the two twitching ears on his shoulder. The corners of his lips lifted slightly as he instinctively reached out, grabbed them, and began to gently rub. Hey. Inuyukamai trembled violently, completely stunned. She was the most noble royal of the Western lands. And yet, she was being treated like a pet? Inuyukamai instinctively bared her sharp fangs, ready to bite and remind him just how fearsome the princess of the Dog Demon clan truly was. But, Lynn suddenly said, considering you aren't paying rent, don't you think this is fair? Rent? Inuyukamai froze. She looked down at where she was curled up on his shoulder. Okay, fair enough. Besides, this was the underworld. She had no choice but to rely on Lynn right now. Forget it, she thought. I'll just pretend to be a pet for now. She consoled herself mentally. Then she tilted her head, letting Lynn pet her without resistance. Since she couldn't stop it, she might as well enjoy it. And to be honest, his technique wasn't bad. Inuyukamai narrowed her golden eyes in comfortable silence. Lynn chuckled and turned his attention back to more important matters. Grafia's rejection hadn't affected him in the slightest. He was used to things not going smoothly when recruiting peerage members. Even Natsuki Minamiya, who he met early on, hadn't been brought in yet. Still. The war, He had no interest in the civil conflict within the underworld. But just then, Lynn flashed forward and reappeared in front of Grafia, blocking her path. Her pupils contracted slightly. That speed. She hadn't even reacted before he was already there. Although surprised, Grafia's expression remained stoic. She frowned and asked, do you need something? Was he going to drag her off and force her into marriage? She couldn't help but wonder, though oddly, she wasn't worried. From that speed alone, and his overwhelming presence she already knew. This man was powerful. But so was she. Lynn kept his expression calm. Do you know where House Valifor's territory is? Valifor. Grafia was momentarily surprised, but pointed to the west. Thanks. The moment he finished, Lynn vanished, leaving only a few glowing sparks in his wake. Just wanted directions? Grafia blinked in silence, then stared at the lingering embers. There was an overwhelming energy hidden in those flames. Even she felt wary. When did such a being appear in the underworld? As a core figure of the old Mo faction, she knew of most of the powerful devils. But Lynn was a complete unknown. Someone that strong shouldn't have remained anonymous. Unless he had the power to end this war. Her heart wavered slightly. She was tired of endless bloodshed. If someone could bring peace to this chaos, then maybe it was him. On the other side, following Grafia's directions, Lynn arrived at the territory of House Valifor in a flash. He had come to the underworld with a clear purpose. To awaken his innate magic traits. As a descendant of the 72 pillars and a noble house of devils, his magic should possess unique characteristics. But until now, it had yet to manifest. Now that he was in the underworld's past, it was the perfect chance to visit House Valifor and unlock it. Even though Lynn already held the strength of a Satan-class devil, certain innate traits could offer terrifying boosts. Take Surtsk's, for example. His advancement to superclass devil was largely due to the destructive nature of his magic. So Lynn saw no reason to delay. But he furrowed his brow at the tense, militarized atmosphere surrounding Valifor's estate. Armies were stationed in formation, clearly on high alert. Valifor is part of the old Mo faction. His expression twitched slightly. How did the Valifor clan, part of the old faction, end up forming a marriage alliance with the Satrai of the Reformists. Shaking his head, Lynn let the thought go and strode directly toward the Valifor mansion. His bold movements immediately drew attention from the soldiers stationed outside. Who goes there? A devil general narrowed his eyes and instinctively reached for the massive blade strapped to his back. Anyone daring to approach the Demon King's army had to either be suicidal or absurdly confident. The general remained tense. Other devils quickly gathered, bloodshot eyes filled with hostility and killing intent. War had long driven them mad. And the old Mo faction was infamous for its brutality. Lynn didn't bother to speak. He didn't even glance at them. He simply walked forward, completely unfazed. 4 high-class devils and a swarm of fodder? They weren't even worth a thought to him. You bastard! The general's face twisted in rage. This guy was way too arrogant. And if he disturbed Lord Beelzebub while he was inside? Just imagining the consequences made the general break out in a cold sweat. Take him down. The demons, already impatient, erupted with eerie screeches. Bat-like wings spread, and a horde of devils took to the skies and ground, surrounding Lynn. Haha! Let's tear this guy's head off and use it as a ball. For the Demon King. The chaos was deafening. Inside the Valifor mansion. In the conference room. The Valifor patriarch frowned and leaned toward his butler. What's going on outside? A fool must have wandered in. The butler whispered cautiously, trying not to disturb their guest. How blind could that idiot be? Couldn't he see the Mu's army outside? The patriarch sighed. He glanced at the man resting silently across from him. Beelzebub. Seeing no reaction, he quietly relaxed. But the next moment, Beelzebub's eyes snapped open. His pupils burned like hellfire. A twisted grin stretched across his face, his voice hoarse and gleeful. Something interesting just showed up. The Valifor patriarch stiffened. Cold sweat beaded in his palms. Think of it as dessert before the main course. Beelzebub stood, burst with magic, and shot out like a missile. Meanwhile, Inyakamai, still nestled in Lynn's arms, groaned slightly. He had flown too fast just now. She was still dizzy. When she finally came to, she realized they were surrounded. Her body tensed. She could sense at least 4 high-class devils here. Was the underworld always this full of monsters? But she quickly relaxed. She was currently Lynn's pet. She turned to glance coldly at the surrounding devils. Her golden eyes gleamed with disdain. Demon King's army. Did that dog just look down on us? The devils boiled with rage. Kill them. Skin that dog. The entire Demon King's army charged at Lynn. But Lynn stood calmly, unmoved. He lifted a hand. And slashed the air. A brilliant light burst forth from his palm. Blessed with holy, light-based attributes, pure nemesis to devils. His magic exploded instantly. Buzz. A blinding wave of light swept outward like a rising sun. The demon's eyes widened in horror. It was like facing their natural predator. Just being touched by it was like bathing in acid. Their bodies began to dissolve. Agonizing screams echoed across the underworld. Every devil was affected. Even the top general dropped to his knees, trembling and drenched in sweat. Did angels breach the underworld? That was the only explanation he could think of. Lynn's magic felt like something straight from heaven. The entire battlefield shifted in seconds. Low and mid-class devils were annihilated instantly. The high-class devils were reduced to ruined corpses. Even the strongest devil present could barely stand, his body eroding like he was cursed. At this rate, death was inevitable. Lynn's face remained calm, unmoved by the carnage. These blessed attributes were just too effective. Interesting. So interesting. A crazed voice echoed. Beelzebub arrived at the scene, eyes gleaming with madness as he beheld the devastation. A devil, with the power of angels. What a joke. His expression twisted with desire. If he could master that kind of power, he would truly be the Devil King. Who could possibly oppose him then? He had to know how this ability worked. Capture. Restrain. Dissect. All those thoughts flashed through Beelzebub's mind in an instant. Unable to contain himself, he lunged toward Lynn like a starving wolf. Lynn's eyes narrowed. 4 Souls Devil, activate. Purifying Devil, activate. Angel Devil, Chaos Mode, activate. Ares Crown, activate. Ha! With multiple states stacked on top of one another, Lynn felt like he was a universe unto himself. Even his exhale sparked arcs of lightning through the air. His blood surged. He was fired up now. It was time to draw his blade. Underworld, Valifor territory. Lord Beelzebub. The general of the Demon King's army, who had been barely holding on, froze the moment he saw Beelzebub's figure appear. A chill instantly crept down his spine. If Lord Beelzebub saw him in such a miserable state, there was no doubt he'd face brutal punishment. He shivered. But Beelzebub didn't spare them a glance. His gaze was locked solely on Lynn. His figure flashed like lightning, and a monstrous surge of magic erupted from his body. A green mist-like wave of magic spread outward. Ugh! Demons caught in the area screamed in agony as their bodies shriveled, drained of life in an instant. Even so, the remaining soldiers of the Demon King's army didn't retreat. They couldn't. Staying might lead to death, but fleeing guaranteed it. Inuyasha trembled violently. He's the same level as Lynn, and that woman before. Sensing the danger, she immediately transformed and vanished into Lynn's arms, her canine face fading away into spiritual energy. Beelzebub's eyes gleamed as he charged at Lynn, exuding terrifying demonic power. Lynn grinned. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. A faint light ignited from his body, and sparks crackled like mischievous fire sprites. His black hair fluttered in the invisible wind. Those crimson eyes were deep, like they held an entire universe. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted upward like a blade, slicing straight through the underworld's ever-present dark clouds. The realm, long shrouded in darkness, was bathed in a radiant, sun-like light. Ha! Lynn exhaled slowly, his breath crackling with arcs of electricity. Thanks to the Four Souls Devil, his mind was crystal clear. Fighting techniques flowed through his muscles as if they had always been there. Multiple special attack buffs activated. He raised his eyes and calmly looked toward Beelzebub. Beelzebub's pupils shrank. He froze mid-charge. His magic, which had surged outward with such fury, now recoiled like a frightened rodent under Lynn's pressure. What the hell is this? The sheer pressure Lynn released overwhelmed even his bloodlust. Sanity quickly returned. Beelzebub was shocked and confused. Just a moment ago, they were equal in aura. Now, he was completely outmatched. That magic earlier it wasn't even demonic, it was angelic. He hesitated. But Lynn wasn't about to give him time to think. Ever since gaining his strength, Lynn hadn't had the chance to test it in full combat. Finally, a mole-level enemy stood before him. It was the perfect time to test his blade. A glint flashed in Lynn's eyes as he grinned. In the next instant, an after-image streaked past. Beelzebub's eyes widened in horror as a massive fist filled his vision. One punch. Bang! It was like a star imploding. A massive shockwave erupted from the point of impact, sweeping the battlefield like a tsunami. The once solid ground was shredded like paper, crumbling away. Countless boulders were reduced to dust. The remaining devils bulged their eyes in disbelief as their bodies were distorted and deformed by the aftermath alone. Their screams of agony echoed briefly before silence returned. The Demon King's army completely annihilated. Ugh! Beelzebub took the punch head-on. It felt like crashing headfirst into a falling meteor. His eyes caved in, his head whipped backward, and his face contorted from the sheer impact. Then, boom! His body flew back like a broken leaf, slamming into a mountain of crystal steel. Crack! The ultra-dense material couldn't withstand the force. Web-like cracks split across its surface. Beelzebub coughed heavily among the debris. His nose was crushed, and a fist-shaped imprint was etched into his face. Lynn's demon-purifying magic still lingered in his body, gnawing at him from the inside out. His vitality was draining rapidly. What just happened? One punch? He was Beelzebub, the gluttony moo. How could one hit do this much damage? But he wasn't about to give up. Beelzebub panted heavily. He was starving. His innate magic trait gluttony activated. A cyclone of demonic power formed above him, funneling massive amounts of energy into his body. Inuyasha, who had peeked out to check on the battle, immediately retreated again. The underworld is terrifying. Beelzebub greedily devoured the surrounding magic. The speed at which his vitality drained began to slow. But, damn it! That light attribute magic. With gritted teeth, Beelzebub attempted to use gluttony to devour the holy magic within his body. Suddenly, pfft! Blood gushed from his mouth. His eyes filled with disbelief. His entire body was swelling unnaturally. What is this? Even angelic magic could normally be digested bit by bit. But this wasn't just light attribute. At that moment, Lynn appeared. He watched as Beelzebub tried to consume his power and raised a brow. You really tried to swallow all that? He was a cruel man. That was a magic buffed with multiple demon-specialized blessings. And this guy ate it like candy? What did you do to me? Beelzebub's voice was hoarse and trembling. Fear had crept into it. Lynn smirked and snapped his fingers. A spark leapt from his fingertip, infused with karma fire via Four Souls Devil's soul-linking ability. Beelzebub definitely had a lot of karmic baggage. As soon as the flame ignited, whoosh! The karma fire erupted, feeding off Beelzebub's sins like it found dry kindling. Beelzebub howled in pain, feeling his soul being incinerated. He rolled frantically, trying to extinguish the flames. But they clung to him, unaffected, devouring him from the inside out. Desperate, he tried to consume the fire with gluttony again. Instead, the karmic flames reacted like someone had hit fast forward. His soul burned away completely. The Mu of gluttony, Beelzebub of the old Mu faction, was dead. Lynn shook his head. Trying to eat everything, that's what killed you. Not even ash remained. He lightly touched his chin and muttered, "Our devils, this week. No. You're just too strong." Inuyasha cautiously poked her head out from Lynn's arms, still trembling. She looked around at the devastated terrain. Twisted demonic corpses were scattered everywhere. The entire area had changed beyond recognition. Ha! She exhaled slowly. Her emotions were complex. This was her first time witnessing battle at this level. If she hadn't seen it herself, she wouldn't have believed it only took one punch. Honestly, that ugly devil from before was terrifying. The moment she saw him, her instincts screamed in alarm. Just the residual magic had drained monsters stronger than her. Especially Beelzebub's final counterattack, it even warped the environment. Yet, he couldn't withstand even one of Lynn's punches? Inuyasha's expression became more complicated. She remembered baring her fangs at him earlier. Suddenly, she curled up again and became very obedient. Fear. After confirming Beelzebub had been completely incinerated, Lynn dispelled all his active buffs. From this battle, he had gained a better understanding of his own power. Though they were both devils, Lynn simply had too many trump cards. Just the stack of blessings he carried made him a devil-slaying nightmare. Just in case, he'd even tagged Beelzebub with a mark of hostility. Then he used Four Souls Devil's Soul Harmonization to enhance his spark with karmic essence. With all the karma Beelzebub had built up, it was a guaranteed ignition. Different buffs, layered effects. Beelzebub had no chance. Now that Lynn had measured his current strength, he nodded in satisfaction. In the blink of an eye, he appeared at the DxD estate. He had purposely controlled the direction of his battle so the Veilfurs wouldn't be caught in the destruction. Still, the mansion's atmosphere was tense. When the DxD patriarch saw Lynn enter, he squeezed out a smile that was worse than crying. "Why Yuri, an angel?" He could smell the devil's magic on Lynn. But he dared not say it out loud. Light magic? From a devil? Even thinking about Lynn's terrifying strength made the patriarch tremble. If he said something wrong and angered him, the Veilfurs would be wiped out next. Lynn gave him a flat look. "I'm a devil." The patriarch froze. "It's over." Seeing his stiff reaction, Lynn said calmly, "You're the head of the house." "Yes. I am." The patriarch nodded immediately. "Then you should know how the DxD bloodline awakens its magic traits." "Magic traits?" Surprise flashed in the patriarch's eyes. But he didn't hesitate and nodded. "Yes. It's recorded in our lineage archives." "Good." Lynn nodded, then walked in as if it were his own home and sat at the head seat of the main hall. The Veilfurs stood nervously. This man had just annihilated the Demon King's army and killed Beelzebub. Compared to that, their house was nothing. Still, in the underworld, power ruled. They were very aware of the situation. After a quick order, the records on awakening magical traits were brought to Lynn. He flipped through them silently. "I see." As he read the devil script, understanding flickered in his eyes. DxD magic traits were transformation and theft? Lynn kept reading. Survival instinct stimulation. He hadn't encountered a life-or-death situation in the modern world yet. Probably wouldn't anytime soon. So this method was out. Then he saw another line. Family ritual, moon theft offering. The so-called moon theft ritual was essentially just about stealing something? Lynn looked expressionless. It really was the perfect ceremony to match the awakening of magical characteristics. But, standing at the center of the ritual, looking at the designated target he was supposed to steal, Lynn's expression turned deadpan. "I'm supposed to steal from the infinite dragon god. Forget it. This magical trait might be better left unawakened." The moment Lynn saw the theft target, he immediately turned around and walked away without the slightest hesitation. The others couldn't see Lynn's theft target and looked confused. Only the head of House DxD had caught a glimpse of the ritual's manifestation. His eyes lit up with shock and disbelief. This man, he possesses DxD blood? Could it be that House DxD is about to rise again? Starting today? Thinking of Lynn's terrifying strength, the DxD patriarch's breath quickened. His hands trembled slightly from excitement. Seeing this, the butler thought he was frightened and cautiously reminded him, "Master, he has left." "What?" The DxD patriarch snapped out of his thoughts and immediately grabbed the butler's arm, speaking with urgency, "Did he leave any instructions?" The butler shook his head. The patriarch's face dimmed slightly in disappointment. But then the butler hesitated before adding, "However." The spark of hope ignited again in the patriarch's eyes. Before leaving, he took some of the family's collections with him. The DxD patriarch froze. He ran to the vault in a hurry. When he arrived and saw the nearly empty room, he fell into silence. You call this some? After a long moment, he finally spoke with a trembling voice, yes. I can confirm now that he is definitely an orthodox Valifor. That thieving attribute, what a perfect match. The patriarch wanted to cry but had no tears. Unfortunately, the bad news wasn't over yet. The butler's expression grew serious as he continued, Master, the Beelzebub and the Demon King's army were annihilated within our territory. This. The Valifor patriarch's expression changed drastically. It was over. How would they explain this to the old Mu faction? After a long silence, the patriarch looked up. His eyes were resolute, and his voice was solemn. I've long detested the old Mu faction's cruel ways. From today onward, House Valifor will formally join the reformist faction. The butler. Without another word, the patriarch shouted, quick! Pack up everything, we're heading for reformist territory. Run now. If we don't, it'll be too late. Oh, right. The patriarch suddenly turned back. See if you can find Beelzebub's body. That bastard, take him with us. Whether it was the annihilation of the Demon King's army or Beelzebub's corpse, they were proof of Valifor's contributions to the reformist side. Even if Lynn was the one who did it. Lynn was Valifor too. That counted. And besides, it saved them from having to clean up afterward. Shortly after House Valifor fled, the news of Beelzebub's death reached the ears of the old Mu faction. As Mido spoke in disbelief, Beelzebub, he's really dead. And the Demon King's army under him. Aside from the hard-to-describe Lucifer, Beelzebub was their strongest Mu. Now he was dead? Didn't he just go out to gather troops? How did he just die? Ziriakal stayed silent for a moment before responding, Beelzebub is confirmed dead. No one below dared to joke about something like that. But the Demon King's army he took was only a portion. You and I will assume control of what remains. Fine, as Mido sighed. That bastard Lucifer was never reliable. He hadn't even made a move yet. Now one of their key combat powers was gone. Seriously. And to think Valifor, who was supposedly under the old Mu faction, was actually aligned with the reformists? And even managed to pull this off? Killing Mu and most of the Demon King's army? Just Valifor? Something wasn't right. Back in the Beelzebub household. Shilba Beelzebub stood in place, stunned upon hearing the news. After a moment of silence, hatred surged in his eyes. Valifor. He clenched his teeth. Just you wait. He would train harder than ever before, rise to become the next Beelzebub, and reclaim his clan's honor. Then he would take revenge on Valifor. And the reformists too. Only the old Mu faction represented true devil orthodoxy. On the front lines. Graphia's expression was complicated when she received the report. Valifor. Isn't that where that man said he was going? And as far as she knew, Valifor didn't have anyone that strong. Which meant it was him. Graphia was now certain. A flicker of doubt crossed her heart. Is he a reformist? But then why didn't he attack her? If he could kill Beelzebub, he definitely could have taken her down too. Graphia was confused. As for Beelzebub's death, she wasn't upset at all. If anything, it feels easier now. Whether reformist or old Mu, as long as one side lost, this endless war could finally end. She recalled the man who'd proposed to her the first time they met. Stronger than I imagined. A strange light flickered in her eyes. Could he be the one to bring an end to it all? The moment that thought surfaced, Graphia couldn't stop herself. She wanted to confirm it. Her long numb heart stirred again, filled with urgency and anticipation. She had fought for far too long. Now that there was even a sliver of hope, she wanted to reach for it. Reformist territory. When House Valifor arrived in a panic, Sirafal and Sertsks were stunned. Then they heard the news about Beelzebub's death. What? Did the old Mu faction send someone to defect? But this was great news. Sirafal and Sertsks exchanged looks and saw shared excitement in each other's eyes. A Mu of the old Mu faction had been eliminated just like that? Yes. 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 Beautifully done. Sertsks looked solemn as he spoke, the reformist faction will never forget the contributions of House Valifor. They had delivered an incredible gift. A reward was definitely in order. The Valifor patriarch let out a deep sigh of relief. The old Mu faction was falling. The reformists were Valifor's only hope now. Of course, it would be perfect if Lord Lynn would lead them personally. Maybe then House Valifor could secure a position in the reformist power structure. Sirafal and Sertsks offered generous rewards and even proposed a public commendation to recognize Valifor's heroic act. Maybe it would inspire other aspiring devils like Valifor to switch sides. At the same time, they learned a name. Lynn. Sertsks and Sirafal both fell into thought. So Beelzebub was killed by this man? A devil capable of taking down a Mu. This was no ordinary person. And Lynn Valifor. Valifor actually produced a devil with such power? Surtsks and Sirafal were surprised. Their expressions gradually turned serious. House Valifor would need to be handled with caution from now on. Elsewhere. After leaving Valifor territory, Lynn casually wandered the underworld. Along the way, his thoughts returned to the infinite dragon god. Honestly, stealing from her wasn't impossible. Her personality was supposed to be easygoing. But Lynn wasn't the kind to bet everything on memories from his past life. This multiverse DxD was already wildly different from canon. He couldn't rely on impressions. Besides, she was a dragon god. He wasn't ready to mess with her yet. And those bastards from Chaos Brigade were another issue entirely. Unless she came to him of her own will? Then, could that still count as stealing? In his arms, Inuyukamai, having left Valifor territory, had remained unusually quiet. She seemed deep in thought. Her claws were nervously fidgeting with each other. Ever since witnessing Lynn's true power, the image of him inviting her to join him kept replaying in her mind. Should she? Her expression twisted in hesitation. Lynn noticed and raised a brow. Do you need to pee? He'd seen that look before. Didn't she get scared the last time? A devil-level battle right after entering the underworld, it was only natural to panic. With an understanding nod, Lynn reached over, grabbed the scruff of her neck, and tossed her away. Wait. Inuyukamai was startled, hurriedly clinging to Lynn's clothes. No. Back in the safety of his arms, she let out a sigh of relief. Then looked up at him with slightly flushed cheeks, her white fur tinged pink. Lynn blinked. Was that a setting? Inuyukamai took a deep breath, seemingly having made a decision. Then she rolled over and exposed her belly. Lynn gave her a strange look. Your submission. I surrender. Her voice was filled with shame. She turned her head away, clearly uncomfortable. As royalty of the Dog Demon clan, she had just exposed her belly to a man. But what choice did she have? Back at Valifor, she had understood one thing. Even in the terrifying underworld, Lynn stood at the top. Beelzebub, one of the strongest devils in the realm. Yet, one punch? Thinking of that scene made her shiver. Especially remembering how the Dog Demon clan had clashed with him before. If things had gone wrong, their entire bloodline would have been wiped out. Inuyukamai sighed deeply. This world was vast. Even a monster like her was just a rootless weed in the grand scheme of things. The battles between the dog demons and the leopard cats in the western land now seemed so trivial. After seeing the wider world, she had reflected a lot. So she had made her decision. For the sake of the dog demon bloodline. To make the western dog demons great again. This was a necessary sacrifice. Yes. The responsibility of royalty. Inuyukamai drew in a deep breath, looked up with unwavering eyes, and declared. Please let me serve you. Hearing Inukamai's resolute voice, Lynn didn't look surprised. From the moment she followed him into the underworld, it was clear where her heart leaned. After everything she had witnessed there, his overwhelming strength, the scales in her heart had tipped entirely in Lynn's favor. Still, Lynn wanted to confirm it once more. You've made your decision. Inukamai's eyes burned with conviction. The western lands were nothing more than a remote corner of the world. The Dog Demon clan? A small group at best. At least, from the perspective of the broader world. But she wanted more. She wanted to elevate the dog demons far beyond what their ancestors had ever achieved. And with Lynn, maybe it was possible. Thinking that, Inukamai's gaze grew fiery with determination. Seeing that, Lynn smiled slightly. Then, congratulations on becoming my pet number 2. Why number 2? Inukamai puffed her cheeks, clearly dissatisfied. As a noble royal of the Dog Demon clan, she had always been number 1 in everything. Lynn gave her a subtle look. That's what you're hung up on? To clarify, he explained the current state of his peerage. When he mentioned Midori Fuse, Inukamai snorted. Another stinky cat. Dog demons and cat demons had always been natural enemies. Lynn smiled wordlessly and reached out, rubbing her exposed belly. Yuh. Inukamai trembled and her cheeks flushed, but she didn't avoid his touch. Instead, she turned her head away and bit her lip lightly. She'd already chosen this path. While still teaching her a lesson, Lynn explained the reincarnation process, including the part about the evil peace system. Bear back. Inukamai's dog ears shot up as she stared at him in disbelief. Isn't this just Lynn's weird hobby? Her golden eyes sparkled with suspicion. Lynn shrugged. It's just the back. I see. Wait, no. That's still embarrassing. Inukamai felt like she'd been tricked into boarding a pirate ship. She then hesitated again. If I get reincarnated, will I still have my dog demon bloodline? She didn't mind becoming a reincarnated devil, but her dog demon heritage mattered. Don't worry. Lynn's palm rested against her fur as he replied calmly, reincarnated devils only purge negative states. Bloodlines that are advantageous will coexist with the devil's blood. Just like how Akeno Himejima, a reincarnated devil, still retained her fallen angel bloodline. After all, reincarnated devils from other races were essentially hybrid devils. That's good. Inuyasha breathed a sigh of relief, then continued listening to Lynn's explanation. Her eyes grew brighter and her heart raced with excitement. Special class devil. Blessing system. She took a deep breath. Lynn may be a devil, but he's practically a god wearing devil's skin, isn't he? His system enhanced development potential, boosted stats, elevated levels. An arsenal of divine abilities. He was the key to reaching heights no one in her clan had ever dreamed of. Ha! Inuyasha's breathing grew ragged. She'd made the right bet. With Lord Lin's blessing, she could definitely lead the dog demons to greater heights. So, Lord Lin, please grant me your blessing. Lin rubbed his chin. You sure you want to do it here? Inuyasha blinked, looked around, and quickly shook her head. She had no idea when a devil might pop up in this place. She didn't want her body to be seen by anyone other than Lord Lin. Mido stone and poured magic into it. Let's leave first. Buzz. A dark radiance shimmered from the stone. A crack large enough for one person to pass through split open in space. On the other side was a lush, verdant world. A path connecting the underworld to the present world had opened. Without delay, Lin took Inuyasha and stepped through. Musashi Province, Kaed Village. Where is this? Inuyasha blinked curiously. It's the Puridge's temporary base, Lin replied casually. He had changed the coordinates when opening the gate, returning them directly to Kaed Village. Boom! Boom! As the two chatted, the land beneath Kaed Village suddenly shook. Midori flew back using her wings and shouted toward the village, everyone! I've lured a big guy! Behind her, a giant creature like a mountain thundered across the land with heavy, earth-shaking steps. You wretched woman! How dare you humiliate me like this? The monster roared in fury, its voice trembling the very air. Its muscular body bulged with pulsing veins, and its 6 massive arms flailed wildly. 2 horns sprouted from its head, and its face was that of a furious Oni. However, pfft! Yuta couldn't help but laugh. The earth spider's ears twitched, and his rage exploded. That cursed woman! That hateful woman! She shaved off his beautiful hair. Wretched woman! The faster he stomped, the more the ground shook. The villagers in Maple Village looked up in surprise but didn't panic. Wow, he's huge. Just his steps feel like earthquakes. Despite the commotion, no one stopped working. A shimmering barrier glowed faintly above Maple Village. With Kikyo and Midori fuse reinforcing it, the barrier was now solid as steel. This mere earth spider couldn't break through. In fact, the villagers even began taking bets. How long do you think he'll last? Maybe 15 minutes. Isn't he a great yokai? He should last a while. But the witches are terrifying. Life had become lively and strange ever since the arrival of Lin's peerage. Inuyasha nestled in Lin's arms, her dog eyes wide in disbelief. That's the earth spider. A well-known monster. Even the western dog demons avoided provoking him. They seemed to be working well together. Lin watched Psycho and the others and nodded. Are they all members of Lord Lin's peerage? Having learned a bit about the blessing system, Inuyasha's eyes sparkled. Were they using the earth spider to increase their stats? They were using a great yokai as a whetstone? Inuyasha stared in shock before glancing over at Midori. That woman gave her an extremely dangerous vibe. Still, with her here, there was no need to worry. And speaking of appearances, Lord Lin's peerage really was full of beauties. Was he also the god of lust? I finally get to kill something interesting. Psycho licked her lips, eyes gleaming red as she dashed forward. TCH. You're also an enemy. Kisaru refused to be outdone, charging toward the earth spider like a blur. The earth spider sneered at the small figures approaching him. But soon, his expression changed. Slash! Flesh split open and blood sprayed across the field, instantly corroding the grass. The earth spider clutched his chest in shock. A massive gash had torn him open. He howled in pain. I'll crush you all. His 6 arms slammed into the ground, causing cracks to spider across the shrine near the village entrance. In response, Midoriko threw 3 talismans behind her. Binding. Golden chains materialized and coiled around the earth spider's legs. Groik. Yuta. Got it. Yuta flipped through the devil tome. Thunder strike. Crack. A massive bolt of lightning descended from the sky, charring him on impact. Just as he coughed up black smoke, another arrow shot toward him. Whoosh. Demon-breaking arrow. It struck him in the knee with a loud snap, forcing him to one knee. Graya. The purifying power surged through his body, sending waves of pain. The roar was like a trigger. Mashiro spread her celestial wings and swooped in with a light and dark flash. The others followed, attacking in unison. With Midoriko leading the coordination, the earth spider didn't last long before crashing to the ground dead. Clap, clap. Lynn applauded, drawing the attention of the peerage. Very nice. You're all getting stronger and stronger. Inuyasha was stunned. That legendary great Yukai had been taken down so easily. Her eyes swept across the peerage members and her body tensed instinctively. Lynn's peerage was terrifying. She'd made the right decision. Master. Yuta and the others ran toward Lynn, spotting Inuyasha nestled in his arms. They glanced at her curiously. Who's this, your new pet? As Yuta reached out to touch her, Inuyasha bared her fangs with a growl. Only Lynn could touch her. Tisk. So fierce. Yuta pulled her hand back with a pout. Inuyasha huffed and turned her head proudly. Lynn just smiled and ruffled her head, making her squirm in embarrassment. Prepare a quiet room. Kikyo glanced at Inuyasha, her expression briefly flashing with interest. A new peerage member? I understand, Lord Lynn. Kaed stared at the small white dog in Lynn's arms, itching to touch it. Before she could, Kikyo tugged her away. Outside the hut, Kaed looked up at her sister. Was that my brother-in-law's pet? So cute. Brother-in-law. Kikyo's cheeks turned a light pink, but she didn't refute it. Instead, she patted Kaed's head lovingly. Still, a flicker of concern crossed her face. She didn't know. Was Kaed qualified to become a member of Lord Lynn's peerage? Dash. Inside the hut. Inuyasha muttered, that was too simple. Lynn rubbed her head. Don't be picky. Hearing that, Inuyasha hesitated, then her body glowed with silver moonlight. A noble, elegant woman stood in her place. White hair trailing on the floor. A light purple kimono. Golden eyes, cool and composed, though her cheeks were flushed. She glanced at Lynn with a complicated expression, then quickly lowered her gaze. Lynn had explained the reincarnation ritual earlier. She was mentally prepared. Still. It was embarrassing. Her heart pounded nervously. But she had made her choice. She slowly unfastened her kimono and turned around, exposing her flawless back. Half naked, her shoulders tinged pink, she spoke in a trembling voice. Lord Lynn, please grant me your blessing. Without hesitation, Lynn summoned an evil piece and pressed it against her back. Yuh. Inuyasha's breathing quickened. Something strange surged within her. Her demon blood boiled. Her golden eyes turned red. The reincarnation ritual activated the dog demon bloodline in her. And then. It was done. The evil piece embedded into her body without resistance. The demon blood fused seamlessly with her own. The system notification echoed in Lynn's mind. Ding. You have obtained Inuyasha of the Demon Dog Clan. Ding. Your peerage member Inuyasha has been reincarnated as a special class devil. Buzz. The window appeared. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Class skill. Body of nature. Inherent skills. Princess of Clouds, natural deterrent to canines, applies racial pressure. Dog demon blood, enters a berserk state, increases all stats by 60%. Royal blood protection, upon receiving fatal damage, automatically banished to the underworld for 3 seconds. Restores 30% max HP upon return. Accelerated agility growth. Accelerated strength growth. Nether moon seal, summons dogs, waning moon / moonlight form. Moon eclipse devil. Under moonlight, increases all stats by 80%. Demon race special attack. Lunar eclipse barrier, lowers enemy agility rank by 1. Devil transformation, gains false god power under a new moon. Enters weakened state for 12 hours after. Development abilities. Boiling demon blood, A. Nether resistance, S. As expected, an ultimate class devil. But. Lynn's gaze paused on one skill. Moon eclipse demon. Especially the line about devil transformation. The power of God. False, hi. Lynn's expression turned a little strange. So she's already touched on divine power? He opened his own panel and looked at the empty authority slot. Well. Inside the hut. Lynn shook his head and copied Inuyasha's blessing data. It's okay. Hearing Lynn's voice, Inuyasha was startled. She immediately reverted to her true form and threw herself into his arms. Her heart was racing. Her flushed face radiated heat with every breath she exhaled. Now that she had returned to the position she was most familiar with, Inuyasha finally let out a sigh of relief. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she eagerly opened her blessing panel. At the moment of her reincarnation, she could clearly feel something in her body breaking some kind of restriction. Her strength hadn't grown instantly, but for the first time in ages, she could feel the possibility of growth again. Inuyasha stared intently at the blessing information. Inevitably, her eyes landed on the moon eclipse devil ability. A power that could lead to devil transformation. And through it, she could obtain a false god's divine power? Her pupils contracted sharply as she gasped. Divine power! Her claws tensed slightly, her eyes widening in disbelief. Just by becoming part of Lynn's peerage, had she touched the realm of gods? Ba dump, ba dump. It was as if all she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat. Even many powerful devils and high-level beings couldn't acquire this power so easily. It might be the power of a false god, but it was still power. Inuyashi's hands trembled as her breathing grew erratic. Just by joining Lynn's peerage, she could touch divine power so effortlessly. Lord Lynn! Lord Lynn! She curled in tighter, instinctively pressing her body closer and rubbing against him. Lynn didn't pay any mind to her little movements. He was also checking the moon eclipse devil ability in his own panel. His moon god skill had no usage restrictions like being limited to a new moon, nor did it weaken him after use. After all, who even was this so-called moon god? Lynn looked at the entry with suspicion. Did such a deity really exist? He shook his head and let it go. Ruffling Inuyashi's furry head, he teased, "Stop staring, you're drooling." Inuyasha subconsciously wiped the corner of her mouth, then shot a resentful look at Lynn. Lynn reminded her, instead of ogling the blessings and stats, why don't you focus on leveling up? Maybe. When your level increases, the false label might be removed. Inuyasha. Her eyes widened. That made sense. But she didn't want to leave this comfy spot she just occupied. Inuyasha fell into a dilemma. After the reincarnation ceremony, Lynn pushed open the old wooden door. Yuta quickly came up to him. She looked at Inuyasha curiously. Hey, can dogs join a peerage? Dog? You're the dog. Inuyasha rolled her eyes. I'm a noble dog demon. Yuta. Is there even a difference? Kikyo explained, high-level yokai usually have the ability to transform. Miss Inuyasha should be no exception. That's right. Inuyasha lifted her chin proudly. A flash of silvery moonlight surrounded her, and she transformed into a refined and elegant woman, her golden eyes gazing at Kikyo and Yuta. Yuta blinked, then touched her chin. She really does look noble. That kind of aura wasn't something you could fake. But you're coming out so soon. Yuta's gaze became strange. With those stats, why hadn't she acted sooner? Inuyasha. She froze, confused. What do you mean? The reincarnation ceremony is over. Isn't it normal to come out now? Seeing her blank look, Yuta held back a grin. What a dumb dog. Yuta immediately crossed her off the competition list. Not a woman who knows how to seize an opportunity. Not worthy of being her rival. A glint of amusement flashed in Kikyo's eyes. Only those who understood could realize how intense the competition within the peerage was. Aside from the 3 million cursed children who were out of play, the rest couldn't just take turns daily. To serve Lynn, they had to fight for it. Many who entered the peerage before Inuyasha never even got a chance. That reincarnation ceremony might have been the best opportunity. Kikyo was glad she didn't back down that day. But maybe it was because they were comrades. Thinking of what happened that day, her face turned slightly red. She had been very brave. Inuyasha still looked confused. She reverted to her true form again and curled up in Lynn's arms. Lynn smelled so nice. She sniffed, her eyes turning hazy. Instinctively, her pink tongue darted out and licked Lynn's collarbone. Seeing this, Yuta's expression froze. So envious. Lynn's eyes gleamed slightly. Inuyasha could even make that kind of expression? A whole new experience. Lynn pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of her cuddled up in his arms. Inuyasha, mid-lick, froze. She suddenly came to her senses. Wait, was she just in heat? No way. That wasn't right. Meanwhile, Lynn sent the picture to Rias. Gotta flex the new pet in his circle of friends. Lynn, Inuyasha.jpg my second pet. Thoughts? Rias? Supernatural Investigation Club. Rias frowned. Konako, you've got more competition for your spot as favorite pet. Konako. Musashi Province, Kaed Village. After chatting for a bit, Lynn turned to focus on this new world. When it came to the underworld, Lynn only cared about one person, Graphia. She had to be part of his peerage. This world was filled with valuable resources. Monsters alone were gold mines. Especially high-level ones. Toga's fangs could produce legendary weapons like the Tessega and Tenseiga. Just so happened, his peerage was short on gear. He might as well gather materials while leveling up. But Lynn rubbed his chin. No forging talent. He couldn't just outsource that, right? They needed talent in the weapons department. Even now, Psycho and Kisara's blades were still basic Veranium weapons. Good enough against Gastria. Maybe Devil's Summoning could find a world with forging talents? Suddenly, a crisp notification rang in Lynn's ear. Devil's Summoning has found a world? Lynn perked up as the notifications continued. Ding! The World High School of the Dead you invaded has reached 99.99% invasion progress. Ding! Experience is being distributed based on merit. Ding! Busujima Psycho's contribution, 32.35%, converted to experience points. Ding! Kashuma Jayaka Utah's contribution, 7.8%, converted to experience points. Ding! Lynn! He shook his head and checked his panel. A flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. Invasion percentage. Only now did Lynn understand what that percentage meant after the Devil's summoning update. So, this means the invasion is complete. And experience is distributed based on each peerage member's contributions. Lynn's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. He still didn't know how much XP he'd get overall. But the amount should be way more than killing Gastria, right? Also, he could probably check the zombie world's current state. Lynn focused, and a virtual map popped up. Zooming into the main zone, he saw a dilapidated cityscape. Zombies littered the streets. He glanced around and spotted their base. There, the black-skinned beauty Rika was training the little cursed children to shoot. The mood looked good. Thinking about it. What had Rika and the others done during this time? Otherwise, the invasion rate wouldn't have hit 99.99% so fast. Lynn pulled out his phone, opened the group chat, and asked. Lynn's Peerage Harem Group. Black-skinned beauty who loves guns, Master, you guessed right. Black-skinned beauty who loves guns, we used the Devil's mobility to explore the entire world and found a ton of survivors. Black-skinned beauty who loves guns, image. Rika posted several photos. All women. Black-skinned beauty who loves guns, if Master thinks they're useful, I can bring them back anytime. Sigma Man. Kashuma Jayaka Utah, are you holding a harem selection event? Black-skinned beauty who loves guns, Ho Utah, you sound like you know this very well. Sigma Man, who do you think I am? Lynn put on a righteous tone. Kashuma Jayaka Utah, you tell us. Sigma Man, alright. Let's meet to update your blessings. Utah looked puzzled. Why the sudden blessing update? But since it was Lynn's order, they complied. Main world. Lynn's apartment. Lynn updated each member's blessings one by one. Psycho's stats went up nearly 2,000. She'll be ready to level up soon. A spark of excitement lit up in Lynn's eyes. The zombie world alone gave Psycho, a high-class devil, that much experience. And she only had a 30% contribution? Lynn rubbed his chin. Conquered world experience is really generous. He just didn't know if it was always like this or if it scaled with difficulty. Psycho, holding her blessing panel, said in surprise, why did it increase so much all of a sudden? Lynn explained the benefits of world invasions. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. I didn't know there were other ways to level up aside from training and fighting. My turn. Utah, naked, pushed Psycho aside and sat in front of Lynn with anticipation. Yup, face to face. She was completely calm now. She even wiggled a little, hoping Lynn would react and do something to punish her right on the spot. Seeing her, Lynn flicked her smooth forehead. Move again and I'll let Mashiro take your turn. Utah covered her reddened forehead and pouted. You're just easily distracted, ah. She gasped, biting her lower lip and letting out a faint breath. Mahiru's lips twitched. So envious. After a light scolding, Lynn updated Utah's blessing. Not bad either. Your stats increased by over 600. Utah exhaled softly, her eyes dreamy. She puffed out her cheeks, staring at Lynn. Only that much. Lynn shrugged. Not my fault. You didn't do much. Exactly. Other than Psycho, were the rest of you slacking in the zombie world? Utah stiffened. Who could keep up with that killer? Lynn nodded. Fair enough. Psycho, standing beside them, just smiled. So what if she liked killing? Finally, it was Mahiru's turn. When Lynn saw her stats maxed out, he said. Mahiru, you can level up. Utah, Mahiru, it's time to level up. Mahiru nodded earnestly. Utah glanced over with a complicated expression. Mahiru's ability values are all S rank. She felt a tinge of envy. Right now, only her magic had reached S rank. The other three attributes were still at A rank. Besides. Mahiru, haven't you been a little too hard-working lately? Mahiru lowered her head, a bit embarrassed. I've been focused on the zombie world lately. Utah looked at her in disbelief. And you still find time to take care of the master. Lynn's food, clothing, and daily life in the main world were all handled by Mahiru. At that moment, the others cast complex looks at Mahiru. Especially Maiko. She looked slightly ashamed, then let out a helpless sigh. The cursed spirits she encountered lately were all low-grade. Even her spirit-devouring ability was useless. Because of that, Mahiru had surpassed her in experience points. She needed a first-grade cursed spirit. On the other side, Lynn didn't waste time and directly helped them level up. Kazumajayaka Yuta. High-class devil. Race, devil. Contractor, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Endurance, I0. Magic, I0. Innate abilities. Archivist Devil. The Devil Tome can record magic, mystical arts, and other abilities, and release them through the tome. The more detailed the information recorded, the more complete the abilities release. During Devil Fusion, the user and the Devil Tome become one, allowing the wielder to utilize all recorded content. Accelerates magic growth. Endless inspiration. While in combat, generates tactical drafts by observing the enemy and environment, increasing party crit rate and resistance to status effects. Requires heavy dessert intake after battle to replenish mental energy. Developmental skills. Thunder Break G. Creation B. Dash. As he reviewed Yuta's skills and development, Lynn suddenly asked, "How's your novel doing?" "Hi." Yuta blinked, then smiled. "Sales are booming. The Devil Lady and her faithful servant, right?" "Yeah." Yuta nodded quickly, proud. "I see." Lynn stroked his chin. "Mashiro, remember to buy a copy for each peerage member tomorrow. We have to support our members' side ventures." "Okay." Mashiro nodded seriously and made a mental note of it. Yuta's smile stiffened a bit. She stammered, "That's really not necessary, is it?" "Lynn." Yuta sighed slightly. Sales were good. But it had totally turned into a harem novel. That wasn't what she intended at all. And yet, the Devil Lady, modeled after her, was portrayed as a total loser. Unacceptable. How did it come to this? Yuta was falling apart inside. "So, please, don't read it." Yuta looked pitiful. Seeing that, Lynn patted her head and smiled. "Don't worry." Yuta breathed a sigh of relief. The master really cared for her after all. Each peerage member gets 3 copies. 1 to keep, 1 to read, and 1 to recommend to others. He's a devil. The more Yuta resisted, the more curious Lynn and the others became. Agility, I0. Endurance, I0. Magic, I0. Innate abilities. Angel Devil. Gains holy, light, and dark attributes. Fallen Angel Wings, spread wings to release light and dark attribute attacks. Accelerated agility growth. Devil Transformation, Chaos Mode. Corridor of Obsession. Sets an emotional anchor, choosing an object of obsession, person/concept. Current obsession, earning Lord Lynn's reward. Actions related to this obsession increase experience gain by 30%. Developmental skill. Lightwing Amplification, C. Each level increases flight speed by 10% and aerial dodge rate by 15%. At S rank, unlocks Holy Light Particle Propulsion for short-range teleportation. Seeing Mashiro's new awakened skills, Lynn's expression turned a bit complex. So, it had become an obsession? After a pause, Lynn pulled Mashiro into his arms. "Hi." Mashiro froze. Lynn stroked her head gently. "Here's your reward." Mashiro's eyes widened. Her heart pounded. In that moment, it felt like a new potential had been awakened. She wanted more rewards. Wanted more. "Hey." Seeing this, the rest of the peerage members began clamoring for rewards too. Then they noticed Mashiro's newly unlocked ability. "Mashiro, that's cheating." Yuta narrowed her eyes. Now the master would have to reward Mashiro regularly. Unfair. So envious. She wanted that ability too. What was the point of endless inspiration? Yuta flipped her own devil tome in protest. Mashiro stared at her blessing panel, deep in thought. Such a good skill. Now she had an excuse. Her breathing grew heavier. Joy sparkled in her eyes. But wouldn't this be unfair to the rest of the peerage? Mashiro hesitated a bit. But Mashiro, you bad girl. So it doesn't matter. After updating the blessings for all members who had gained experience from the zombie world, Lynn used a one-click update to synchronize the rest of the ordinary peerage members. He received a round of feedback. Then, he reviewed the peerage's current combat strength. 2 ultimate-class devils. 4 high-class devils. Several mid-class and low-class devils. It felt like the next world could be conquered entirely by his peerage. And they'd earn world invasion merit. Peerage members could then use their achievements for experience, which in turn fed back to Lynn. A perfect virtuous cycle. Feels like the parasitic life is just beginning. Evening. Zombie world. Lynn arrived as promised. Trailing behind was the ever-clingy Inyakamai. At the peerage's base, a group of cursed children had been waiting eagerly. The moment Lynn appeared, they erupted in cheers. "It's Lord Lynn. Lord Lynn came to visit us." With a few instructions, the cursed children swarmed around Lynn. His arms and legs were covered with girls. Inuyasha poked her dog head out, eyes filled with question marks. Then she was met with a sharp pair of crimson eyes. Inuyasha puffed up her cheeks and glared at Inuyasha. Damn it! That's my seat! Inuyasha. Before she could react, Inuyasha leapt up and wrapped herself around Lynn's neck, shooting Inuyasha a smug look. Ha, little brat! Inuyasha rolled her eyes. She was a mature adult. Why would she compete with a little girl? That said, her tail twitched accidentally, brushing Inju's arm. A second later, Inuyasha appeared 100 meters away, dazed and confused. Humph! Inuyasha smirked in satisfaction. You think you can take her spot? You're 200 years too early. Lynn chuckled as he comforted them. The cursed children, having endured so much, were surprisingly well-behaved and lovable. At the very least, Lynn enjoyed their pure affection. Ko, it's been a while. Lynn placed a large hand on Ko Senju's head, gently rubbing it. Ko looked up, still expressionless. But the warmth from Lynn's hand made her heart race. After a while, the cursed children scattered. 2 days later, Lynn looked at the glowing devil summoning on his system panel and smiled. Now it's time to get to work. Zombie World, Puridge Base. In the Puridge meeting room, Lynn sat at the head of the table. Saiko, Yuta, Kikyo and others took their seats one after another, expressions ranging from excitement and anticipation to seriousness. All of Lynn's core peerage members were present, except for a few low-class devils. Lynn had obtained the coordinates of a new world. Everyone here had seen the news posted in the group chat. Those who had crossed worlds once or twice before, like Saiko and Yuta, were brimming with curiosity. Others like Kikyo, who had only recently joined the peerage, looked somewhat nervous. Lynn knocked lightly on the table, drawing everyone's attention. You all understand the situation. This time, we'll be invading a new world. Lynn's voice was calm as he made that unmistakably devilish declaration. Saiko and the others immediately sat up straighter, paying close attention to Lynn's instructions. Lynn tapped on the display screen behind him, and 3 world names appeared. Demon Slayer, Bleach, Date Alive. That's right. Whether it was due to devil summoning going haywire or some other reason, it had provided access to 3 worlds at once. But Lynn found this change quite welcome. At least they wouldn't have to wait for a new world to be discovered after finishing one. Lynn pointed to the words Demon Slayer and said, after consideration, this will be the world our peerage will invade first. Since the icons of these 3 worlds appeared on Devil's summoning, Lynn had been planning out his invasion strategy. First of all, the 3 worlds differed in difficulty. Demon Slayer was the easiest. Lynn didn't even take Muzan Kibutsuji seriously. Bleach and Date Alive were more challenging. Therefore, Demon Slayer was the optimal starting point for the peerage's first large-scale world invasion. And I've decided that Midoriko, Kikyo and Mashiro will lead this operation. Lynn had this plan in mind for a while. The world of Demon Slayer was perfect for training peerage members. Kikyo was stunned at first, but quickly grew nervous. Still, she answered firmly, yes, Lord Lin. Invading a world. She exhaled deeply, trying to ease the pressure in her chest. After all, it was her first time participating in a major peerage operation. And from the start, she was entrusted with a critical task by Lord Lin. Seeing her unease, Lin reassured her, don't be nervous. With the strength of you, Mashiro, and Midoriko, it's more than enough to take that world. But is it really okay to leave the world invasion to us? Mashiro asked worriedly. After all, this wasn't just a simple mission, it was a world invasion. Don't worry, Mashiro-chan. Midoriko sat up straight, her voice full of confidence. Oni-san is strong. Lin also smiled and said, there's no need to worry. The strongest beings in Demon Slayer are, at best, comparable to high-class devils. And Kikyo's purification and Mahiru's light attributes are natural counters to the demons in that world. Everyone showed a bit of confusion at first. So Lin gave them a brief rundown of the world's structure and enemies. After a short explanation, the peerage members began to understand the nature of Demon Slayer. Kikyo and Mashiro both relaxed visibly. Creatures that fear sunlight. Their purification and light-based powers would indeed be effective against such enemies. And they can even regenerate after being chopped up. Midoriko blinked in surprise. Wouldn't it be easier to extract and purify the soul directly? Yuta groaned. Of course that's your first thought. Still, after analyzing it, everyone agreed the world wasn't particularly difficult. Everyone let out a breath of relief. Then, one by one, they began preparing with anticipation in their eyes. This would be their first proper invasion. In the zombie world, Lin had paved the way, and they'd just tagged along to pick up gains. In the Black Bullet world, they only completed a few minor objectives. Lin had always been the core force. But now, finally, they could contribute to the peerage themselves. And they hadn't forgotten. Invasion experience is distributed based on contributions. That thought made their blood boil. Seeing their expressions, Lynn clapped his hands. Alright. Let's go over the targets for the Demon Slayer world invasion. Unlike previous worlds like the Zombie World or Black Bullet, Devil's Summoning now provided tasks that increased the invasion level. First, recruit peerage candidates. By reincarnating talents from that world into Lynn's peerage, they could rapidly accelerate world conquest. Lynn rested his chin on his palm and continued, I'll give you all the authority to use evil pieces. As long as someone's worthy of joining, the evil piece will give a signal. Silence fell upon the conference room for a brief moment. Then Yuta raised her head, eyelids twitching. She exhaled and said flatly, in other words. This is just recruiting more members for your harem, isn't it? Congratulations. That is correct. You've earned the title of Chief of stating the obvious. Yuta's eye twitched. Yuta stared at Lynn with a face full of resentment. Midoriko touched her lower lip and asked innocently, so, we're getting more sisters? No. That just means more rivals. Miko and Mashiro exchanged glances, suddenly feeling the pressure. Inuyukamai rolled lazily where Lynn's hand was petting her. Her eyes subtly rolled in annoyance. She still remembered everything from the past 2 days vividly. And inevitably, as her thoughts wandered to certain images, her snowy fur flushed slightly pink, and her legs tensed. Suddenly, Lynn's hand brushed over again. The heat of his touch made her tremble. She squeezed her legs together, her body going stiff. That was close. Inuyukamai panted softly, feeling a strange sensation growing within. No one noticed her little reaction as Lynn continued. Second, expand our peerage's influence in the Demon Slayer world. Influence? Miko asked with a slight frown. Lynn lowered his gaze. A strange smile curled on his lips. I want that world. To echo only the devil's voice. The devil's whisper. That line echoed in Yuta and the others' minds. But no one was afraid. After all, they were devils too. Lynn, as the head of the peerage, had given the final order. Everyone moved into action. The Cursed Children Army, led by Ko Senju, was divided into departments. Combat, Logistics, Commerce, Research. Each branch had subdivisions: Magic Corps, Assassination Squads, and more. Everything operated with tight structure and precision. Lynn also assigned top-tier fighters like Psycho into elite strike teams, forming cross-world expedition forces. He tailored each group based on their specialties. For instance, Kikyo's team was tailored for Demon Slayer. In the Bleach world, Lynn was preparing to send Miko. Her Spirit Seer powers were highly effective against Spirit-type enemies, making her well-suited for the Soul Society. Her Spirit-devouring ability would definitely be a force to reckon with. But Lynn wasn't entirely reassured just yet. After all, Miko was still a mid-class devil. He planned to wait until she reached high class before dispatching her. The Soul Society's power levels were high. Characters like Genri Yusai Yamamoto, Wiwak, and Aizen Sosuke were no pushovers. And then there was that so-called Soul King. Speaking of which, Lynn stroked his chin. The Soul King. Can I devour him? Elsewhere. The strategy team consisting of Kikyo, Midoriko, Mashiro, and others were in discussion. Recruiting harem members for the master was easy enough. But making the entire world echo only with devil voices? That part was troubling. Should we exterminate the humans, like in the Black Bullet world? Yuta proposed. Mashiro hesitated. Even if we're devils, that feels too extreme. Besides, that situation was unique. Humanity didn't deserve to live in the Black Bullet world. But it's not the same everywhere. Yuta raised a brow and offered a new suggestion. Then how about ruling over humanity? Psycho frowned. Running a world is annoying, isn't it? The room fell silent. Then, Kikyo spoke up. Why don't we make them worship devils? Worship devils? Yuta and the others blinked. That's right. Kikyo nodded firmly. Just like I worship Lord Lin. If we can make them believe in him, that should be enough, right? As a shrine maiden, this was something Kikyo was very familiar with. She had already started thinking about how to create a demon cult in that world. I get it. Yuta's eyes lit up. You want to influence the world through religious belief. Kikyo tilted her head. Probably. As a Miko, it just felt natural that Lord Lin should have a shrine. She wanted to spread his name across the entire world. That was her duty as a shrine maiden. The others finally understood what Kikyo meant. Spreading religion was indeed a solid strategy. But would people really believe in the devil? Yuta chuckled darkly, eyes narrowing. We're devils. Isn't forcing belief our specialty? Later, after hearing Kikyo and the others' plan, Lin's crimson eyes glimmered. He touched his chin. Faith. Not bad? He hadn't planned to destroy humanity like he did in the Black Bullet world. If he eradicated humans every time, that would be going too far. Even the old Mu faction, notorious for cruelty, hadn't been that extreme. Besides, he was a new era devil. A good devil who followed the law. Even Natsuki Minamiya had awarded him the 3 Good Youth Excellence Award. But humans were complicated creatures. Faith alone wouldn't be enough. They needed fear too. Besides, Lynn didn't really care much about this world. It was meant as training for Kikyo and the others. So he'd let them handle it. Bring the devil's faith and fear to that world. Lynn made the final decision. Then, without waiting for devil's summoning to light up, he directly selected forced invasion. Demon Slayer World. A woman with black hair, purple eyes, and butterfly hairpins dyed pink on the edges of both sides stopped in her tracks. Coco Connie frowned and looked down at the strange demonic contract document in her hand, one that clung to her and couldn't be discarded. Is this some kind of trick by Musen? She hesitated. With something like this on her, she couldn't risk returning to the Demon Slayer Corps' headquarters. If it was a tracking tool, the entire Corps could be wiped out. Just as her worries deepened, the devil's summoning document suddenly glowed. A projection appeared before her eyes, a man with black hair and red eyes. Connie's eyes widened. It really is a demon. This must be blood demon art. She grew tense, subconsciously reaching for the blade at her waist. What is this situation? Lynn frowned slightly at her words and raised his hand. He knocked on the air as if rapping on a door. Open the door. I'm a devil. Connie blinked, still trying to make sense of what was happening. Then, the contract document in her hand erupted with light. A black vortex formed, expanding rapidly from a pinpoint into a swirling rift. Step. Footsteps echoed from within. A cool and elegant woman dressed in a white shrine maiden outfit stepped out from the vortex. Behind her, countless pairs of small wings flapped as dozens of tiny girls emerged. Kikyo's cold eyes swept across the stunned Connie. Do you want to believe in the devil? She asked plainly. Connie. Main world. After sending Kikyo and the others to the Demon Slayer world, Lynn returned to his apartment. He was still confident in Kikyo and Midoriko's strength. As for the Bleach world, Lynn planned to leave that to Maiko. Once she reached high-class devil rank, she'd be dispatched for experience and advancement. There were plenty of resources in the Bleach world too. Zanpakuto, Kido, strange artifacts, plenty of value for the peerage. And especially for Yuta, as the archivist devil, she could make great gains by recording and integrating those techniques. Still, the Bleach world is tough. Lynn touched his chin. We'll need to take it step by step. As for Day-Day Live, all Lynn could say was, the spirits smelled really nice. He wanted to bring them all into his peerage. On the other side, Inuyukamai was curled up in Lynn's arms, baring her teeth at Midori Fuse. Midori glared back without backing down. Even an ultimate-class devil couldn't stop her from being rewarded by Lord Lynn. Suddenly, buzz. A teleportation circle lit up in the apartment. Konako appeared from within and froze. Konako blinked as she took in the scene. Midori Fuse and Inuyukamai locked in a silent standoff. Did I come at a bad time? No, you're just in time. Midori pulled Konako over as if finding a long-lost ally. We're of the same species. We should stick together and push out the invaders. Invader. Konako was confused for a moment. Then she turned to Inuyukamai, realization dawning in her eyes. Yes. A dog. Truly a dangerous enemy. And wasn't this Lynn's second pet? Very strong too. Konako's expression turned serious. She could feel the aura of overwhelming strength coming off Inuyukamai. Inuyukamai blinked and stared back at Konako. Master Lynn, is this one of your pets too? Pet? Those words instantly shattered Konako's focus. Her serious gaze vanished. She pursed her lips, heart skipping a beat. Lynn denied it. No. Boom. It hit Konako like lightning. Denied. Her eyes lost focus, her legs began to sway, and the world around her dimmed. She looked like she might collapse at any moment. Midori watched her worriedly. Lynn stroked his chin and added, not yet, anyway. Not yet. Konako lit up again. Right. She wasn't his pet yet. But she could be. Eventually. Yes, that's right. Suddenly, something occurred to Konako. Wait. Wouldn't this hurt Rias? She remembered Rias's gentle smile and grew conflicted. Then, she decisively set that thought aside. The future could deal with itself later. Right now, it was time to battle. She glared at Inuyukamai, who was lounging in her rightful spot. Humph. Inuyukamai raised her chin and looked down with haughty disdain. What are you looking at? Lord Lynn's position should belong to the most capable. Demon Slayer world. Connie stared blankly at Kikyo, the cursed children behind her, and the black vortex still swirling. More figures emerged, determined and resolute, shouting about conquering the world in Lord Lin's name. Devils! A chill crept up Connie's spine. Something extraordinary had just descended upon this world. But maybe it was a kind of blood demon art? A technique related to space? Connie's expression turned serious as she raised her Nichiren blade. You all must be demons. Miss. These strange space warping methods. And the army of demons? Could that man from earlier be Muzan Kibutsuji? Just the thought of it made Connie's chest tighten. Kikyo. Does this woman not understand the difference between humans and devils? It's devil, Kikyo repeated flatly. Connie paused, tilting her head. Is there a difference? Kikyo opened her mouth to respond, but Yuta cut in. Honestly. Why are you wasting time talking to her? Yuta's eyes glinted, the evil peace authority given by Lynn flashing in her system. The woman before them was flagged. A harem candidate. She clicked her tongue, visibly annoyed. Anyway, you're captured. This was a forced invasion, after all. Time to act like it. Captured? Connie's eyes sharpened. And you still claim not to be demons. Flower breathing, fourth form. Crimson Hanagoromo. A sharp breath escaped Connie's lips as her peach-colored blade drew a rising arc toward Kikyo. Clang! A crisp echo rang out. Connie's pupils contracted. Her blade had struck a translucent light blue barrier. No matter how hard she pushed, it wouldn't budge. Some kind of vampiric defense spell? As that thought crossed her mind, she saw Kikyo raise a pale hand. Between her fingers, a talisman with ancient runes shimmered. Bind! With a soft command, golden chains sprang forth from thin air. Connie gasped and tried to retreat. But the chains moved too fast. She raised her sword to block, but the golden restraints had already reached her. In the blink of an eye, she was bound. The chains twisted around her wrists, spiraled up her arms, then wrapped around her waist and shoulders. Clang! Her Nichiren blade clattered to the ground. Her breathing grew heavier. The chains slithered lower, coiling tightly around her ankles. Thud! Connie collapsed to the ground, unable to rise. She bit her lip and struggled. But clink! Clink! The more she moved, the tighter the bindings drew in. They left impressions on her butterfly-patterned haori and uniform. NNGH. Connie's eyes flew open wide. She instinctively squeezed her legs shut. Trapped, completely trapped. Yuta looked at the scene with an unreadable expression. Kikyo. Your techniques, pretty advanced. Kikyo's cheeks turned faintly red, and her usual coolness wavered. I just used it instinctively. Connie gasped for breath, her face flushed, eyes staring at Kikyo. Kill me. Yuta raised a hand and made an X with her fingers. Rejected. Then waved triumphantly. Target captured for Lord Lin's harem. Oh. Mashiro looked awkward, unsure whether to celebrate or not. A harem? Connie's heart trembled. They're giving her to that man from earlier? Speaking of which. Lynn? So it wasn't Muzan Kibutsuji? But it doesn't matter anymore. It's already over. Ka! A shrill cry came from above as a crow flapped its wings and fled the scene in panic. Psycho turned to Kikyo. Should we take it down? Connie's heart skipped a beat. Kikyo thought for a moment. No. Let it spread news of the devil's arrival across the world. Connie let out a silent sigh of relief. At least, someone could still pass on what happened here. Main world. Lynn, currently playing video games with Konako, received a message from Yuta. Kashomajayaka Yuta, Connie tied up version.jpg. Kashomajayaka Yuta, Master look. We've successfully captured your harem recruit. Lynn opened the image, zoomed in thoughtfully, then tapped the heart icon. Sigma man, nice technique. Did you tie her up? Kashomajayaka Yuta, nope. That was your beloved shrine maiden. Warring States shrine maiden, Yuta, stop talking already. Konako peeked at the image and blinked. Then turned to Lynn with a strange look. Senpai. You're into this kind of thing. She lowered her head slightly. Her body couldn't match that kind of figure. With that thought, she fell quiet. Konako bit her lip and muttered in a low voice. Senpai. You really do prefer the fierce ones, huh? Seeing this, Lynn pulled her closer and gently patted her head. It's fine. You're small and cute. Konako bit her lower lip harder, clearly unwilling to accept that. Demon Slayer World. After capturing Koko Connie, Kikyo gave the order, first, find a suitable place to establish the base. Spread Lord Lin's wool across this world. Yes. The cursed children flapped their wings and flew off to scout the surrounding area. Connie's eyes widened in disbelief as she watched the scene unfold. So many flying demons. Her heart trembled. A deep sense of despair began to rise. How could the Demon Slayer Corps possibly defeat such an army of evil beings? Her eyes dimmed. Agility, I0. Endurance, I0. Magic, I0. Innate skills. Flower breathing. Crimson eyes on the other shore, slight boost to agility. Floral veil. When activating skills, invisible petals form a barrier, increasing agility. Petals possess purification effects, resistant to curses and toxins. A special devil form without reincarnation. After copying the blessing info, Lynn handed it to her. This is... Connie looked confused. The power you gained by selling yourself to the devil. Lynn teased, then explained the blessing system. Phew. After understanding, Connie's breathing grew rapid. She had received the devil god's blessing. Meanwhile, Demon Slayer World, Butterfly Mansion. The crow delivered terrible news. Crash. A bowl fell, breaking into pieces as dark green medicine spread across the floor. The sharp sound echoed throughout the Butterfly Mansion. The strong medicinal smell began to spread. But no one cared anymore. Coco Shinobu stood frozen. Big sister. Taken away. Butterfly Mansion. Shinobu wore a dark expression. She grabbed her sword and rushed out the door. She was going to bring her sister back. At the same time, after completing the reincarnation ceremony, Connie returned to the world she had once sworn to protect. She looked at Kikyo, who was troubled over where to establish the base, and suddenly said, Miss Kikyo, I know a more suitable location. Upon hearing this, Kikyo's cold eyes lit up. She immediately placed both hands on Connie's shoulders. Where? As a shrine maiden, Kikyo was deeply devoted to anything concerning Lynn. Seeing her reaction, Connie couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Miss Kikyo, you really are so devout. But after becoming part of Lord Lin's peerage, it wasn't hard to understand. Internally encouraging herself, Connie decisively sold out her former master, Yubayashiki. However, Connie believed that converting them to Lin's teachings was a gift, not betrayal. She steadied herself and added, but it might take a little time to persuade them. No need. Kikyo was already eager to establish a branch for Lin. A rare smile appeared on her otherwise cold face. I'll go with you, and bring a team of cursed children to help persuade them. The corner of Coco Connie's eye twitched slightly. Well then, good luck to them. But once they experienced Miss Kikyo's power, they'd know exactly what to do. Though Connie wasn't fully sure. Count me in. Psycho, who had been eavesdropping, suddenly spoke up. Kikyo's usually cold face showed brief surprise. Psycho smiled. I was intrigued by Miss Coco's swordsmanship yesterday. As she spoke, her breathing rhythm subtly shifted. It's called flower breathing, right? Connie's eyes widened. You learned it. She had only demonstrated a bit yesterday, yet Psycho had already mastered it. As expected of Lord Lin's followers, monsters, every one of them. Psycho's eyes flickered. There must be other breathing styles like that too, right? Connie nodded silently. With the objective confirmed, Kikyo, Coco Connie, Psycho, and a team of cursed children flew toward the Demon Slayer Corps' base. Along the way, everyone they passed knelt down, prostrating themselves as if witnessing the descent of divine beings. Of course, those aware of demons were even more terrified. Were humans really going to be conquered by demons? Kikyo paid them no mind. Or rather, she did it intentionally. Lord Lin had said faith must be built with awe and reverence. Therefore, when devils pass through, clear the way. While en route, a girl who bore a striking resemblance to Coco Connie suddenly appeared, blocking their path. Shinobu drew her blade, her violet eyes frosty. You're the ones who kidnapped my sister. Kikyo gave Connie a questioning look. Your sister? Connie nodded. She's always been this brave. Connie responded with an awkward yet polite smile. Hi. Sister. Shinobu froze when she saw Connie. Connie waved and smiled brightly. Shinobu, do you want to join the devil's cult? Coco Shinobu. Her gaze fell to the wings behind Connie. Her pupils contracted. Her sister had become a demon. You've turned into a demon. Connie flew over, flicked Shinobu's forehead, and said irritably, can't you see the sun's right above me? Hi. Shinobu blinked, realization flashing across her face. Oh, that's true. So what was going on with her sister? Connie briefly explained the situation with the devil's cult. Including reincarnated as a devil and received Lord Lin's blessing. Was that true? Shinobu looked at her suspiciously. Had her sister been brainwashed after getting captured? But Shinobu's gaze once again returned to the wings behind Connie. Maybe it really was true? Seeing Shinobu not taking it seriously, Connie became anxious. Now that she was part of Lord Lin's peerage and had been reincarnated as a devil, her lifespan was vastly different. If Shinobu didn't join Lin's peerage, she would eventually have to bury her. Still, there was no need to rush. Connie believed that once Shinobu saw Kikyo's power and Lord Lin's might firsthand, she'd join the Devil's cult sooner or later. Soon, the group arrived at the Demon Slayer Corps' territory. The large army of cursed children instantly caused a commotion. Stop! You're not allowed to go any further. Rengoku Kyojuro stood guard at the entrance and froze the moment he saw Kikyo's group. Demons had evolved? They could move freely under the sun? And they just happened to come here. How convenient. Rengoku frowned, heavy-hearted, ready to sacrifice himself if needed. Seeing this, Connie stepped forward. Miss Kikyo, let me handle the rest. What? Rengoku looked shocked. You're the one who brought them here. Half a day later, at the Yubayashiki family estate. After Kikyo used her purification powers, the family's curse was completely removed. Yubayashiki Kaguya, full of vitality, said, Amane, I'll leave the talks to you. Yubayashiki Amane. She glanced at Kikyo's icy expression and sighed. Understood. The Yubayashiki family will definitely contribute to the Devil's cult. She made the decision on their behalf. The Yubayashiki family had suffered under a 1,000-year curse, which Kikyo dispelled effortlessly. Meanwhile, the Yubayashiki family had been worshipping deities for generations, only ever managing to slightly suppress the curse. The comparison was obvious. Besides, Amina cast a glance at the courtyard. Psycho was meditating under a cherry tree, blade in hand, her eyes closed, seemingly immersed in something. On the ground, the other pillars had fallen into a deep sleep. The only one still conscious was the confused love pillar, Mitsurai Kanroji. Things were clearly changing. She thought silently. The Yubayashiki family must seize this opportunity. While Kikyo and the others were devoutly preaching Lin's name in the Demon Slayer world. Shuchin Academy. Supernatural Investigation Club. Inyakamai looked worried and poked Lin, who was casually flipping through the Devil Lady and her faithful servant. Lord Lin, can you return to the Warring States era? Lin closed the book and looked down. You finally remembered your own tribe. Inyakamai smiled sheepishly. Are you really qualified to be royalty? Inyakamai pouted. But now, in addition to being a dog demon of the Western lands, I'm also a follower of Lord Lin. Yes, very self-aware. Lin patted her head in praise. Hee. After thinking for a moment, Lin said, all right, let's go. Shiba Mayori had just messaged him saying their research into forging weapons using monsters had made progress. However, they wanted more reference material. The Dog Demon clan should be familiar with Todasai, right? Warring States era. Kaed village. Lord Lin. When Kagam saw Lin, she jogged over happily. Wearing a red and white shrine maiden outfit, she had fully adapted to this era. Lin raised a brow. Haven't been attending classes at Shuchin lately, have you? Kagam, who had been smiling, suddenly froze. Crap, I'm screwed. Kagam squatted down, clutching her head. My mom's going to scold me so hard when I get back. But what's done is done, I won't go back. Kagam quickly bounced back. Studying? Who needs that? Leveling up is what matters now. Lin couldn't help but chuckle. Then he looked at Kagam. By the way, you really look more and more like Kikyo in that shrine maiden outfit. Eh? Why would you say that? Lin narrowed his eyes. When Kikyo returns, I'll renew both of your blessings. Inyakamai. You're going to renew their blessings? Lin shrugged. Last time, things got a little chaotic with the 3 shrine maidens. Naturally, he wanted to make up for it. Kagam blushed slightly, clearly understanding his implication. But I understand. She trotted off in a flustered panic. She didn't refuse. Inyakamai stared blankly. Lin watched Kagam's embarrassed retreat with amusement. Then, he felt a tug on his clothes. Looking down, he saw a black-haired girl staring up at him. Brother-in-law, when is my sister coming back? Kaed. Lin patted her head and recalled Kikyo's earlier report in the group chat. The base had already been confirmed. The next step was recruiting clan members with the right qualifications and expanding their reach. And apparently Psycho had a good harvest. Rumor had it she beat down every pillar. And even learned all the breathing styles, now digesting them. Lin opened the interface and checked the Demon Slayer world invasion percentage. 36.94%. His eyes flickered in surprise. Seems like the Demon Slayer core took up a significant chunk. It should be soon. Lin answered her gently. Anything strange going on in Kaed village lately? Kaed nodded. Lady Midoriko and my sister's barrier is really strong. Nothing is happening at all. Lin accompanied her on a short walk around the village. The shrine was being renovated. Before heading to the Demon Slayer world, Kikyo had already prepared to preach for him during the Warring States period. What a diligent shrine maiden! Lynn was touched. I'll reward her handsomely once she returns. Next up. Let's escort this little mutt home. Western Lands. Since Inuyasha's disappearance and the Panther tribe leader's death, tensions between the Dog Demon clan and the Panther clan have escalated into full-blown chaos. Damn it! Seiko, one of the 4 kings of the Panthers, wore a twisted expression. Just Sesshomaru alone was able to hold off all 4 of them. She hurled an ice spear in frustration, only for Sesshomaru to block it with ease. Sesshomaru, you can't last much longer. You dog demons will be trampled beneath our feet. As she finished, a ball of fire flew towards Sesshomaru's back. Sesshomaru calmly sidestepped the attack. He parried all the incoming strikes from the 4 kings with little effort. Compared to the pressure from that man back then, this was nothing. Thinking of Lynn, Sesshomaru subconsciously tightened his grip on his new sword. Far off, a woman with black hair and red eyes watched the battle from the shadows. It was Kagura, who had rushed over upon hearing that the one Naruko feared had appeared. That white-haired dog is strong and good-looking. Kagura muttered. But, can he kill Naruko? She touched her chest. It felt so empty. There was no heartbeat. Kagura thought of Lynn again. If anyone could do it, it would be him. After all, ever since Lynn showed up, Naruko hadn't dared go near the Shiken Jewel. On the battlefield, just as Sesshomaru and the 4 Panther Kings clashed, suddenly, a dazzling white light erupted from the center. In the next moment, Lynn appeared. Sesshomaru and the Panther Kings froze, their faces stiff. That's the man who killed my father. Seiko screamed internally, but she dared not act on it. She had witnessed his power firsthand. His strength was beyond comprehension. Facing someone like him, even the idea of revenge was unthinkable. Seiko gritted her teeth, ashamed of her own cowardice. But survival of the tribe mattered more than vengeance. The battlefield turned eerily silent. Even the dog demons and panthers stopped moving. Lynn took in the familiar scenery and casually greeted them. Yo! Sesshomaru shuddered slightly. On the other side, Kagura, sensing the battlefield's shift, looked confused. Then she saw a man with black hair and red eyes floating above. Her eyes lit up. It was the man from the mirror. And the moment he appeared, the war came to a full stop. Even that terrifying white-haired dog trembled. Kagura was stunned. Then their eyes met. Lynn grinned at her. Kagura froze. He noticed me. She reached for her feather, ready to flee. But a large hand grabbed her by the neck. In her view, Lynn's face drew close. Kagura was so startled she clamped her legs together. Lynn studied her curiously. Wasn't this Kagura? Did Naruko send you? The moment she heard Naruko's name, Kagura's eyes lit up. He knows Naruko. She nodded rapidly. Well, she had come on her own, but blaming Naruko was fine too. Oh, that clown Naruko actually dared send you here. Yes. That's the attitude. That condescending tone toward Naruko. Kagura's eyes sparkled as she stared at Lynn, as if wanting to etch his face into her soul. Well, if only her soul weren't still in Naruko's hands. Seeing Kagura's openly infatuated face, Lynn chuckled. Everything she thought showed clearly on her face. You want me to kill Naruko? Kagura froze. She was seen through. And no. She tried to protest, but facing Lynn's suddenly intense gaze, Kagura trembled. Her entire body went cold. She dropped to her knees, raised her rear, and said with a trembling voice, I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't have tried to use you. Lynn smirked. If an apology was enough, what do we need the police for? Police? Kagura looked confused. But Lynn was obviously just making an excuse. How could he turn away someone who came to him? As punishment, from now on, you belong to me. Kagura. Western Lands. The war between the Dog Demon clan and the Panther clan once again came to a halt with Lynn's arrival. But the outcome this time would clearly be different. Inuyasha had made up her mind to purge the entire Western Lands. Only Lynn's voice would remain here. Cloud Palace, Dog Demon Clan. Lynn sat high on the throne, gently stroking the soft white fur of Inuyasha resting on his lap. Kagura knelt at his feet, biting her lip. Belong to him? Yes. Was he asking her to follow him? But I'm sorry, Lord Lynn. Kagura looked troubled. My heart is still under Naruko's control. If I betray him, I'm afraid. The memory of that near-death feeling made fear flash in her eyes. But if Lynn could help her. Kagura raised her gaze, the red in her eyes carrying a glimmer of hope. However, Lynn remained calm, showing no sign of making a promise. Seeing this, Kagura's heart sank. That's right. Why would such a powerful man go out of his way for someone insignificant like her? Despair slowly spread from her eyes. Suddenly, Lynn toyed with an evil piece and said, "Your heart. Can't I just give you one?" Kagura. She looked up in confusion. Lynn curled the corner of his lips. "What? Do you want it?" Kagura's breath hitched. "Give her a heart? Could that really happen?" She was skeptical but she wanted to try. Even if the odds were slim, she wanted to seize it with everything she had. She wanted to break free from Nariku's cage. Kagura bowed her head. "Please, Lord Lin. Give me a new heart." Lin's smile deepened. "Then, take off your clothes." Kagura froze, then slowly removed her kimono. There was no hesitation in her movements. It made sense to reveal the location of the heart during the procedure. That's what she told herself. Then, Lin pressed the evil piece against her chest. Ah! Kagura's breathing quickened. The cold touch made her shudder slightly, her body trembling with ripples. During her transformation into a devil, the empty cavity in her chest began to fill. Thump thump! Kagura's eyes widened. A heartbeat. At the same time, she heard the crisp sound of shackles breaking in her mind. The connection to the heart Nariku once held was severed. Tears streamed down her cheeks without her realizing it. She was finally the wind, free once again. At the same time, a notification echoed from within her newly formed heart. Kagura. Mid-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Stats. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Innate abilities. Dance of the Dragon and Snake. Summons countless violent tornadoes, throwing enemies into chaotic winds and increasing their damage taken. Corpse Dance. Controls corpses like puppets. Wind Devil. Wind's Blessing. In open areas, all abilities increase by 30%, able to sense airflow changes within 1 kilometer, and automatically generates a reverse cyclone to neutralize wind-based attacks. Wings of Freedom. Burns vitality to briefly break limits. Flight speed increases to the speed of sound. Absolute resistance to binding type abilities. Devil Transformation. Wind of Destiny. Dash. Lin was in a great mood after obtaining another special devil who came to him of her own will. He made a copy of Kagura's blessings. Kagura blinked in confusion. "This is a blessing," Lin explained briefly. Kagura clutched the information with trembling hands, her heart racing. Lord Lin. Not only had he given her a new life, but he'd given her a path to strength. Woo! Kagura exhaled softly, her slender fingers touching her chest. She could feel it. The new heart pulsing with life. Tears stained her cheeks, but she smiled gently. She didn't even bother to put her clothes back on as she threw herself into Lin's lap, crying in joy. Lord Lin! Lord Lin! She kept whispering his name like she was trying to etch it into her soul. Inyakamai, who was lying on Lin's thighs, cast a disdainful glance at the naked girl. But then Inyakamai froze slightly. Wait! Something was pressed against her stomach? Her snowy fur instantly turned pink as she jumped up like a startled bird. Kagura was also startled by the sudden movement, and when she saw the scene before her, her face turned red. Sorry. She stammered, I was too forward. I'll take responsibility. Kagura looked serious, like she'd made up her mind about something. Inyakamai's eyes widened. Wait. What are you planning to do on my throne? She was dumbfounded, yet her body instinctively dashed to the doorway. No way, she couldn't let some random person get close. Dash. The next day. The sun rose. Inyakamai squatted outside the gate, pacing back and forth. Her snowy white ears were tinged pink. Her sharp nose reminded her over and over of what had happened in her room yesterday. They actually did it, on her throne. Could she ever sit there again? Inyakamai was in a daze. Inside. Kagura's beautiful figure lay across Inyakamai's throne, sleeping soundly. Lin gently stroked her silky black hair. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes, her crimson pupils slightly dazed. Then she saw Lin looking down at her with a soft smile. Kagura blushed and quickly looked away, unable to meet his eyes. She couldn't believe how bold she had been last night. But there was no way to express the gratitude she felt for being freed from her cage. And with the blessing system, a fire ignited in her heart. Maybe she could take down Nariku herself now. Kagura's eyes sharpened. She exhaled softly. Then she stared at Lin, completely entranced. Everything now. It was all given by Lord Lin. From today on, she was the wind that blew only for Lin. After leaving the Cloud Palace, Lin recalled something important and had Inyakamai summon Todasai in the name of the Dog Demon clan. Before long, Todasai arrived, nearly in tears. It's all mine. Lin flipped through the various forging techniques that Todasai had compiled into a book and nodded in satisfaction. Todasai sighed helplessly in his heart. What a fate! After looting the Dog Demon clan's treasury, Lynn arrived in the Black Bullet world. He handed everything over to Shiba Mayori, who was visibly excited. With this, we can definitely craft weapons that satisfy everyone. As the daughter of an arms corporation, Shiba Mayori had some experience with weapon manufacturing. Until more professional blacksmiths were recruited, she would take charge of the Puridge's equipment department. But she seemed to enjoy it quite a bit. Elsewhere, Miroto Sumire, with her messy hair and lifeless eyes, began reporting her latest research. Based on the proto-enterogen principle Lord Lin provided, I've extracted a gene fragment called the yokai factor from a monster's body. Oh! Lin was intrigued. What can it do? This was unexpected. How do you plan to use it? Lin grew interested. Could it be possible to implant the same intestinal factor into his peerage members like he did with the proto-enterogen? Miroto Sumire nodded. In theory, yes. But there's an unstable component in the yokai factor. If injected into a human, it can easily lead to mental instability like rage or mania. She rubbed her temples, looking distressed. Lin was thoughtful. Wasn't that the same as Inuyasha's berserk state? When Kikyo returns, you can discuss it with her. Lin touched his chin. Maybe. Her purification power might help. Hearing this, a faint light sparked in Miroto Sumire's dull eyes, and she fell into deep thought. After briefly checking in with Shiba Mayori and Miroto Sumire, Lin reviewed the condition of each of his peerage members one by one. Then, he returned to the main world. Apartment. Lin stroked his chin. The peerage. Is it too scattered? He had one base in the zombie world, another in the Black Bullet world, and now he planned to develop Ka-ed village during the Sengoku era. It felt like it's getting hard to manage. Lin muttered. Just as he was thinking about how to resolve the issue, the apartment doorbell rang. Ding dong! Ding dong! Lin raised a brow and looked out the window. It was overcast and lightly raining. Sana. An image of a refined, intellectual girl flashed through Lin's mind. He was about to call Midori and Mashiro to open the door, but remembered they were both busy leveling up. With a small sigh, Lin went to open the door himself. Outside. A girl with long light blonde hair and almond-shaped eyes stood with a blank expression, raising her head slightly. Not Mashiro. Her tone was flat, but Lin could sense it was a question. She looked like she was searching for Mashiro. Did she knock on the wrong door? But Mahiru's not home right now. It's raining, please, come in. She paused for a moment, then stepped into the apartment without hesitation. Lin. She really wasn't afraid he might be a bad guy? But Lin looked at her closely. She felt familiar. Mashiro. Shiina Mashiro. She gave her name in a flat tone, eyes dull and expressionless. Shiina Mashiro? Lin paused, running the name through his memory. But what's your relationship with Mashiro? He was curious. Shiina Mashiro tilted her head. Cousin. Lin's eye twitched. That actually sounded legit. Click. He closed the door. After she changed shoes in the Genkan, Lin noticed she was soaked and snapped his fingers. Whoosh. Mashiro's clothes fluttered for a moment, then a wave of warmth washed over her. Mashiro blinked. Her clothes were dry? She looked at Lin with a slightly blank expression. Lin's peerage harem group chat. Sigma man at Angel Devil Shiina Mashiro.jpg. Angel Devil? Demon World Slayer, Mashiro, was slightly stunned when she saw the message. Mashiro. Soon, she got the full story from the group. Angel Devil, Master, I'll be right back. Mashiro felt a bit anxious. Based on what she knew about Mashiro, she was bound to cause trouble for Lin, right? And thinking of how Mashiro couldn't even take care of herself. There was a strange, unsettling feeling rising in her chest. The sense of urgency spiked, and she looked ahead. A man with black hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and fangs was holding a Nichiren blade, ready for battle. Sorry, Mr. Demon, something urgent came up. This needs to end quickly. Mahiru's gaze turned sharp. You looking down on me? Thunder breathing. Mahiru's expression remained calm as her fallen angel wings spread open. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a light flap, countless white glowing feathers launched toward Kaigaku. Chi-chi. The wings were incredibly fast. Kaigaku had no time to react. His body was pierced by the dense barrage of light feathers. Wisps of green smoke rose from his body. Ah! Kaigaku screamed, the sun. Why is there sunlight? Even after passing through Kaigaku, the feathers didn't stop. They crashed into a small hill behind him with a loud boom. Moments later, both Kaigaku's body and the hill behind him vanished. Gulp. Shinobu, who had followed behind, couldn't help swallowing hard. The peerage was terrifying. But there was a spark in her eyes. Her small hands clenched instinctively. If it was them, then of course they could do it. Shinobu's spirits were lifted. She hadn't forgotten her revenge against the demons. Big sister had already joined the devil cult. Coco Shinobu pursed her lips. She decided to follow her sister's path and pray to the god of the devil cult, Lord Lynn. Pray for strength against the demons. Main world. Apartment. Lynn sat on the sofa. Mashiro squatted by his feet, her amber eyes staring straight at Lynn's slender fingers. Seeing this, Lynn moved his index finger to the right. Mashiro's gaze followed it. Then Lynn pointed upward. Mashiro raised her head slightly, eyes still fixed on his finger. Lynn chuckled. Why did this feel like using a cat toy on an actual cat? After a moment of staring, Mashiro suddenly said, magic. Her tone was certain. Then she instinctively pulled out her sketchpad and started drawing. Thankfully, she hadn't forgotten what was in her backpack when Lynn had performed magic earlier. After a short while, on the sketchpad, a lifelike drawing of Lynn appeared. Only, when did he wear a cape? And where did the wizard hat and wand come from? Lynn gently patted her head, ruffling her silky blonde hair. No need for unnecessary embellishments. Mashiro shook her head and finally broke free from Lynn's hand. Then she stood up and began undressing. Lynn blinked. You are got caught in the rain. Need a bath? Mashiro spoke plainly and logically. But aside from being in a boy's home, hadn't he just used magic to dry her? Rita said, if you get wet in the rain, remember to take a shower. Her tone was flat, but her actions were swift. In moments, she was completely undressed. Just remembered the instructions? Lynn scanned her curiously, then reminded her. Did Rita also say not to take your clothes off in front of a boy? Mashiro paused. Then her little face scrunched up. Eventually, she shook her head and said, Lynn is different. Lynn. His expression grew strange. Why did that sound like she was saying he wasn't a man? Lynn is a magician. Mashiro said firmly. Lynn face-palmed. So, a magician isn't a man. Mashiro blinked. HMMN. I am a man. Mashiro shook her head firmly. It's different. All right. Lynn rubbed his brow. After a moment, Lynn looked at the naked Mashiro. Aren't you going to take a shower? Mashiro looked confused for a second, then said, Lynn, help me. Lynn. Who usually washes your clothes? Rita. The maid. Lynn had officially witnessed a giant baby today. Still. He picked her up by the waist. Come on. I'll give you a full cleaning, inside and out. Mashiro tilted her head. Her heart started racing the moment he lifted her. She covered her chest in confusion. When Mashiro rushed back, she walked in on a scene that had clearly just happened. Mashiro froze. Their fingers were still intertwined, and their knuckles had marks from the grip. You. Mashiro. Mashiro greeted her calmly. Mashiro felt her head hurt. Call me sister. Then, she picked up a pair of pink panties and held them out toward Mashiro, who was wearing nothing but Lynn's white shirt. Mashiro said seriously, Mashiro, put these on. Mashiro's eyes went blank. Seeing this, Mashiro sighed, then pushed her down and forcibly dressed her. Once Mashiro was finally fully dressed, Mashiro let out a breath of relief. Then, blushing, she turned to Lynn and bowed slightly. I'm sorry, master, for troubling you. It was so rude to let Lynn bathe her little sister. Lynn smirked. It's fine. Not only did I get a nice view, I had fun too. Mahiru's face flushed. She whispered, if master wants to, he could definitely find her. But she couldn't bring herself to say the rest out loud. Still. Why was Mashiro the one who got rewarded? She was the one who came first. Mahiru felt a bit down. Lynn asked curiously, has she always been like this? Mahiru paused, then replied, Mashiro, she really can't take care of herself at all. Before, her aunt and the maid were always by her side, so it wasn't much of a problem. Hearing that, Mashiro suddenly said, Lynn is the first man. Mahiru. Lynn smiled. So now I count as a man. Mashiro lowered her head. She didn't know why she said it, it just came out. Her heart was beating faster. Why? Lynn chatted with Mahiru for a bit and asked about the Demon Slayer progress. Then Mahiru's phone suddenly rang. She gave Lynn an apologetic look and pulled it out. When she saw the sender, she bit her lip. Sorry, master. I need to go home for a bit. She stood up, determination in her eyes. Lynn nodded thoughtfully. It was probably her family. But Mahiru, now that she's become a devil, would never be the same. Click. The door to Lynn's apartment closed. Out in the corridor, Seo stood in front of Mahiru's apartment and saw her coming out from the neighboring unit. Surprise flashed in her eyes. She was silent for a moment before speaking coldly, what were you doing next door? Shiina Mahiru replied emotionlessly, it has nothing to do with you. Sayo. Her eyes widened, her pupils full of disbelief. Mahiru, actually spoke to her like that? She couldn't help but yell, Mahiru. Is that how you talk to me? Mahiru stayed calm. Miss Sayo, if you have nothing else, please leave. She's rebelling now. Unbelievable. Where did that cute Mahiru go? Furious, Sayo demanded, who taught you this? Was it someone next door? She glanced toward Lynn's apartment. Ever since Mahiru walked out of there, something felt off. Mahiru frowned. Are you done? Why didn't she realize before how annoying this woman was? Mashiro, that unpredictable factor, was still alone with Lynn. Humph. Sayo snorted and marched toward Lynn's door. I want to see who corrupted you. Smack. A sharp sound rang out. Sayo stopped in disbelief, holding her face. But what frightened her more was Mahiru's speed just now. It was like she teleported. Mahiru's gaze turned icy. Touching Lynn had already crossed her bottom line. I'll take care of Mashiro. You can leave now. Sayo bit her lip, deeply bothered by being slapped by her daughter. But she saw the coldness in Mahiru's eyes and felt a chill in her heart. Mahiru wasn't a good girl anymore. Sayo left, ashamed. Mahiru smiled faintly, feeling refreshed. Mahiru, you're already a bad girl. But it's not enough. Will you? Not yet. I still haven't gotten masters. Mahiru's breathing quickened as she opened Lynn's door and stepped inside. In the living room, she saw Lynn. Mahiru felt her back grow warm. Right. The spot where the corridor of obsession was engraved? Her eyes lit up. She found her reason. She pursed her lips and walked quickly to Lynn. Lynn looked up, smiling. All done. There was only a door between them, it couldn't hide anything from Lynn's hearing. So Lynn had heard everything. Mahiru froze for a moment, then nodded vigorously. Yes. Lynn had been watching her the whole time. Thinking that, her caramel-colored eyes wavered shyly. Master. Mahiru needs a reward. Apartment. Living room. Mahiru sat astride Lynn's lap, her eyes dazed, lips glistening slightly. Mashiro watched the two silently, then murmured in a daze, romance manga. Hearing Mashiro's voice, Mahiru snapped back to reality. She pursed her lips, her breathing growing a bit ragged. She buried her head against Lynn's collarbone and whispered, not yet. More, I want. More. Lynn's eyes changed. Have you made up your mind? Mahiru responded with a faint hum like an ostrich trying to bury itself deeper. Receiving her answer, Lynn didn't hesitate. He picked her up and headed toward the bedroom. Mashiro tilted her head, a trace of confusion in her eyes as she watched the two leave. Why? Did they stop? Inside the bedroom. Mahiru lay on Lynn's bed, her long flaxen hair spread across the pillow. Her face was hot. Flushed cheeks, fast breaths, and a subconscious urge to look away. But she pulled herself together and looked directly at Lynn. Master Lynn. Please, look only at me. Don't look anywhere else. As her words fell, Lynn took that as the signal to begin. The angel revealed herself completely before his eyes. But Lynn wanted to make this angel fall from heaven entirely. Without wasting any more time, he quickly began to undress Mahiru from head to toe. His large manhood pressed against her belly, urging him to dive into the wet core of her body. He pushed her roughly onto the bed and climbed on top of her, kissing her from her neck down to the valley between her breasts. Og, this is amazing, master. I feel weird actin'. Do you want me to be a little rough with you, huh? Lynn cupped Mahiru's cheek roughly, forcing her to look into his glowing eyes. Lynn smirked like a devil. Well, he was a devil, so everything was just right. Holding his muscled cock in a firm grip, he brought the bulging tip to the entrance of her pussy. The moment she felt it, she squirmed beneath him. Refusing to thrust in immediately, Lynn gently massaged her clit and outer folds with the tip, lapping up her wetness and teasing her slowly. Mahiru gulped and gasped, digging her fingers into the sheets beside her. The head of his cock pulsed and throbbed, gliding up and down against her soaked vulva. With his tip gleaming from her arousal, he began to slowly inch it in, riding her wetness and feeling her walls tighten around him. Gasping, desperate to plunge into her creamy depths, he angled his cock and thrust forward with force. Og hog. Barely 2 inches in, Mahiru was already panting. Slowly edging between her thighs, Lynn's broad chest pressed down against Mahiru. Leaning in, feeling the hot wisps of her frantic breaths curling out of her mouth, he gripped the shaft of his rock-hard cock, angled his thrust downward, and gently nudged the tip against the tight entrance of her vagina. Nghhhhn. Mahiru whimpered as the bulging head sliced through her walls. It's okay, master, I can take it. She whispered, sensing Lynn's hesitation. She drew a deep breath and spread her legs wider, moaning softly. Put it in. She urged him. Don't worry about me, just put it in. Alright, I'm going in. Lynn plunged deeper. Arg! A sharp cry escaped her lips. Holding both her hands and gripping her thigh, he thrust forward again, forcing her folds apart, his thick, veiny cock tearing through her tight inner walls. The pressure of his cock splitting her insides made her tremble, her body reacting violently to the overwhelming intrusion. Oghun. As expected, a burst of high-pitched screams tore from her throat. Her hips started to slide away, instinctively backing off. Above her head, her hands strained against his grip, trying to break free. Her blonde of hair shook side to side, silently pleading for a moment's mercy. But Lynn merely grunted and tightened his grip on her delicate wrists. Nghhhnn masked air. She moaned into the open air with a mournful cry, her voice rising in a squeal that rang directly into Lynn's ear. His cock throbbed with excitement. Lynn's eyes flashed at the sound of her cry, it shot through him like a jolt of electricity, spurring him on. Finally, his balls slapped against her ass as he rammed the last few inches deep into her pussy. Her tightness was insane. Curling his toes and sliding his knees across the bed for better leverage, he let her pulsing walls contract around him as he slowly pulled out, gliding through her wetness all the way to the tip. Mahiru's eyes flared open as she jerked her head forward, violently sucking in a sharp gasp before exhaling in a burst of whimpers and shuddering breaths. Then came the first real stroke. With frantic vigor, Lynn slammed into her tight pussy, the sheer pressure making his knees buckle. He pulled out and plunged back in with the second thrust, gliding effortlessly through her soaked pussy, the sensation of her tight walls clamping down nearly mind-numbing. His cock throbbed with each brutal thrust, mercilessly splitting her open as her body jolted up and down beneath him, rocked by the weight of his pounding hips. Her vaginal fluids trickled down in thick, wet streams, sliding from her swollen folds to the curve of her butt, staining the white sheets beneath her in a warm, glistening puddle. Oghun. Mahiru's perky breasts bounced with every thrust, waves of pleasure radiating from every inch of her body. Her eyes rolled back in pure ecstasy, a deep, throaty moan spilling from her lips. Lynn's pace quickened, his intensity growing with each stroke. Now that their bodies were fully in sync, his thrusts plunged deeper, stronger, his cock slicing through her pussy as if reaching straight for her womb. Mahiru's moans rose in volume and desperation, each thrust dragging her closer to the edge. "Don't stop, master! Deeper, please! Make me fall deeper," she cried out. The sheer force of his thrusts felt like it was splitting her screaming pussy in two. Her body jolted with every slam, the sheets beneath her sliding against her pale skin in rhythm with his urgent strokes. Her eyes glazed over wildly, struggling to hold on to the last threads of sanity. Desperate to muffle her cries, she buried her face into the soft, white pillow and screamed into it. As the overwhelming sensation crested within her, Mahiru couldn't hold back any longer. "Fuck K," she screamed. Her cries echoed through the room, as Lynn's rhythm intensified, each thrust louder, faster, bringing them both closer to the brink. Mahiru's body trembled uncontrollably, her legs tightening around him. A pressure built inside her, swelling into something powerful and unfamiliar, threatening to consume her completely. In the midst of it, she heard a strained whisper against her ear. "I can't hold back any more, Mahiru. Are you ready?" Mahiru's body trembled in ecstasy, writhing uncontrollably beneath him as wave after wave of pleasure surged through her veins. With a breathless, desperate gasp, she cried out, "Yes, master, give it all to me." Lynn kept thrusting, his rhythm relentless. From her shoulders to her slender waist, down to her trembling thighs, Mahiru's entire body convulsed, shaking in violent spasms with each crashing wave of release. Her toes curled, her knees buckled, and her voice gave out. Until finally, she could take no more. Her screams faded into soft, broken whimpers, leaving only a faint echo of pleasure hanging in the heavy air. With one final, powerful thrust, Lynn couldn't hold back any longer. I'm coming, Mahiru," he groaned. Mahiru's body convulsed as he released deep inside her, thick streams of cum flooding her tight walls. The sudden rush of warmth filled her, overwhelming her senses and sending her spiraling into a state of blissful unconsciousness. Her eyes rolled back, and her body slumped against him. In the haze of her dreams, Mahiru felt a sudden heat spreading across her back. The spot where the corridor of obsession was engraved grew hotter and hotter. With a sharp gasp, Mahiru jolted awake. Seeing that, Lynn granted her another blessing update. Mahiru. High-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Stats. Strength, I-56. Agility, H-112. Durability, I-83. Magic, H-101. Innate skills. Angel Devil, omitted. Corridor of Obsession. Sets an emotional anchor point, selecting an object of obsession, person or abstract concept. Mahiru's anchor, Lynn. Growth acceleration, plus 30% experience gain when actions align with obsession. Developmental ability. Lightwing Amplifier G. Seeing Mahiru's corridor of obsession, Lynn narrowed his eyes and prepared to intensify her training. Suddenly, squeak! The bedroom door creaked open. Mahiru looked up, locking eyes with a pair of blood-orange pupils. Mashiro. Mahiru was shocked and quickly asked, "What are you doing?" Mashiro peeked through the crack in the door and answered calmly, "Materials." Materials. Mahiru wanted to say more, but the devil resumed his attack. Mashiro. No, don't look. Buzz. Mahiru's corridor of obsession burned with heat. Her base stats began to increase again. Strength, I-56 rightward arrow I-57 rightward arrow I-58. Agility, H112 rightward arrow H113 rightward arrow H114. Durability, I-83 rightward arrow I-84 rightward arrow I-85. Magic, H101 rightward arrow H102 rightward arrow H103. Seeing this, Lynn's eyes glinted. Mahiru, this is necessary training. So. Fall, Angel. The next morning. Sunlight filtered into the bedroom through the window. Mahiru's golden hair shimmered in the light. Lynn brushed aside her blonde hair, glanced at the blessing stats on her back, and raised an eyebrow. Over 600 stat points in one night. Was last night that intense? And isn't her skill kind of insane? Lynn's eyes shifted slightly. He patted her hips. Mahiru, if you keep working this hard, you might surpass Psycho soon. Mahiru bit her lip, her face turning red, caramel eyes misty. But she didn't refuse. They stayed curled together in bed a while longer before Lynn finally got up and opened the bedroom door. Then he saw Mashiro, wearing only a white shirt, slumped against the hallway wall, fast asleep. However, Tisk, where did you toss your panties this time? Lynn shook his head and pinched her nose. Mashiro wrinkled her nose and instinctively reached upward like she was drowning. Moments later, she woke up with a gasp, Lynn's face reflected in her blood-orange eyes. Mashiro looked confused, then grabbed Lynn's hand. She pointed to the floor where she'd just been sitting and blinked. It's all wet. Lynn's eyelids twitched as he glanced downward. When he saw the faint drying trace on the floor, his expression turned subtle. Were you listening all night? Lynn had to admire her persistence. Collecting materials. Mashiro emphasized the words with weight, proudly displaying her artistic resolve. Fine, collect all the materials you want. Lynn ruffled her blonde hair and headed to the living room. He took a bottle of Coke from the fridge. Pop. Gulp gulp gulp. Ha. Satisfying. A few days later. Lynn's apartment. After everyone's blessing stats had been updated. Yuta frowned. She looked at her stats, then at Mahiru's. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Innate abilities. Artistic cell. Extremely sensitive to artistic expression. Painting devil. Pigment armament, ultramarine unlocked, can summon tides to attack. Blank canvas field, expands a 50-meter drawing space. All objects in the range are rendered as line art. Enemy attacks are visualized. Can predict trajectories 5 seconds in advance. Devil transformation, unfinished theater. Lynn rubbed his chin after seeing Mashiro's skills. Then he snapped his fingers. Buzz. The vibrant room suddenly faded to black and white. Everything now felt like it existed inside a manga. Hey! Yuta looked down at herself and exclaimed in disbelief, did I become two-dimensional? Mahiru and the others were also shocked. Only Mashiro, the original artist, seemed unfazed. But manga. Lynn looked out the window and noticed his domain had expanded beyond 50 meters. However, other than that, nothing seemed to have changed. I wonder if it'll grow further. After retracting the territory, Lynn made a copy of Mashiro's blessing. And then, a guest arrived. Lynn smiled and teleported in front of Natsuki Minamiya just as she was preparing to cast a space spell. Natsuki blinked in surprise. Then her eyes turned unfriendly. That noise just now, was you, devil. Oh? What a rare guest. Tisk. Natsuki clicked her tongue. Who do you think I came here for? The moment she saw him, she knew that ruckus had to be Lynn's doing. I'm warning you. The church's holy sword was recently stolen. As a devil, you'd better keep a low profile. Unless you want trouble with the church. She flicked open her fan to hide her mouth, eyes filled with irritation. This guy, always wasting her time. Oh? Natsuki-chan still worries about me. Low profile? He'd been low profile as a low-class devil. Low profile as a mid-class devil. Even as a high-class and ultimate-class devil. Now he was a mu. You want him to still keep a low profile? Then what's the point of being a Satan class? Chapter 140, Stolen Durndal. In short, you'd better stay out of the spotlight for now. After saying that, Natsuki Minamiya used space manipulation magic to disappear. She still had to clean up the mess Lynn caused with his massive commotion. The general public was in a panic, and they needed to be pacified with magic. Lynn watched as Natsuki disappeared and stroked his chin. From her words, he understood just how much of a stir the domain expansion earlier had caused. All of Tokyo. He felt like he hadn't even used much effort. Also, he got another piece of news from Natsuki. The holy sword was stolen. Lynn narrowed his eyes, feeling a sense of déjà vu. Then, it clicked. That fallen angel chick. A glint of realization flashed across Lynn's eyes. But, wasn't that incident supposed to happen in Kyoto town? It had nothing to do with him, right? Still. As a friend, Lynn felt he should at least remind Rias. After all, she was a rich girl who'd helped him out a lot before he got where he is now. Well, she was also his wealthy fiancé and his future pet in reserve. Lynn took out his phone and sent a message to Rias. Kyoto town. Kyoto Academy, Occult Research Club. Rias looked a little confused when she received the message. The holy sword was stolen. That was definitely something that couldn't be ignored. But, what did that have to do with her in Kyoto? Rias tilted her head in confusion but still replied, thanks for the heads up. Everything's normal in Kyoto for now. Rias, so, when are you going to fulfill that treat you promised me last time? She had been holding on to that promise this whole time. Lynn, next time for sure. In the Occult Research Club, Rias pouted as she stared at the message on her phone. Men's words really couldn't be trusted. But, she wasn't just hung up on the meal with Lynn. There was something she wanted to ask him. After thinking it over, Rias sent another message. Rias, how about this, I treat you? Lynn, sure, you pick the time. Rias. She stared at her screen, lips pursed. So this guy did have time, he just wasn't planning to use it on her. Rias felt a bit depressed. She got up and stood in front of the full-length mirror in the club room, carefully examining herself. Then she turned to Akeno, who was practicing tea nearby. Akeno, tell me honestly. Am I no longer attractive? Rias was starting to doubt herself. Even in Kyoto Academy, she still had tons of fan clubs, right? Why did she come across like some unappealing girl in front of Lynn? He wouldn't even treat her to a meal? Ah! Hearing Rias' words, Akeno paused and set down the teacup, then scanned Rias from head to toe. Finally, she smiled and narrowed her eyes. With the president's impressive curves, she could charm plenty of men. Rias blushed slightly at her words. It's not as exaggerated as you say. But, thinking of Lynn again, Rias sighed. Seeing her like this, Akeno smirked. President, are you fretting over how to seduce a man? Rias rolled her eyes. What do you mean seduce? That's so crude. After a moment of thought, she said, I'm planning to go to Tokyo's Minato ward in a few days. Akeno. Her eyes widened slightly, puzzled. What was she planning to do in the port district? Then, Akeno suddenly paused, recalling the one person in Minato with ties to Rias. Ah! Akeno's lips curled into a smile, and her eyes gleamed mysteriously. President? Are you finally making a move on Sana's fiancé? As soon as Akeno said that, the entire Supernatural Investigation Club fell silent. Konako put down the snack in her hand and looked up at Rias with amber eyes, faint vigilance glinting in them. President? Her tone was flat and emotionless, but somehow felt full of nuance. Rias' face froze. She gave Akeno a reproachful look, then said helplessly, use your brain, would you? Why would I go after Sana's fiancé? Rias declared righteously, Sana is my best friend. To prove she had no ulterior motives, Rias waved her hand and said, in that case, let's all go together. Just think of it as a team-building event for the Supernatural Investigation Club. A few days later, Rias sent a message. Rias, sorry, I might have to cancel. Occult Research Club. Rias stared at the two uninvited guests sitting on the sofa across from her, clearly displeased. Facing her stare, Shadu Irina and Zenovia didn't look uncomfortable at all. Not long ago, the Holy Sword Durandal, which was managed by the Vatican, the Protestant Church, and the Orthodox Church was stolen. Shadu Irina explained. There wasn't any change in Rias or Akeno's expressions. After all, Lynn had already given them a heads up. Rias narrowed her eyes and said coldly, so, what does that have to do with us devils? Shadu Irina shrugged helplessly. Can't be helped. The one who stole the holy sword is here. Rias' expression changed slightly and her brows furrowed. This was really going to cause her trouble. Also, the culprit is a high-ranking member of the fallen angels. She paused, then added grimly, Cockabile. Rias' heart skipped a beat when she heard the name. Later, after the church group left the Supernatural Investigation Club, Rias sent Lynn another message. Rias, you were right. The church people showed up. Lynn, need devil backup? The moment Lynn's reply arrived, a magic circle appeared on Ria's phone screen. A devil's contract document materialized out of thin air. Rias instinctively caught it. Then, her eyelids twitched as disbelief filled her face. A devil flyer was delivered to a devil. Tokyo, apartment. Lynn wasn't surprised to receive Ria's message. But the holy sword arc got pushed forward a bit. Was this the butterfly effect? Lynn suddenly remembered the batch of light attribute warlocks and gear Sana had sent over earlier, and his eye twitched. Looks like that case might already be solved? Ding dong. Another message came in. Lynn's Puridge Harem group chat. Inyakamai, Dragonbone Spirit.jpg. Inyakamai, Lord Lynn, your loyal pet will return to you victorious after defeating the Dragonbone Spirit. Warring States period. In the Sky Palace, Inyakamai, with her elegant and aloof aura, sent a message totally at odds with her demeanor. Busujima Psycho, a dragon? Sounds fun to chop. Mind if I join? She only needed a bit more experience to reach the peak of ultimate class devil, so she was asking for a share. Inyakamai? Sword Ghost, let me get in on that. I want a slice too. Inyakamai? A hint of displeasure flashed in Inyakamai's golden eyes. She was talking to Lord Lynn. What were these two doing jumping in? Princess, the tribesmen are ready. Just as she was about to reply, a maid walked in. Inyakamai paused and said coldly, got it. After thinking, she added, wait for 2 others to arrive, then we'll depart. Time to defeat the Dragonbone Spirit. That evening. Warring States period. A pitch-black valley. Roar. A thunderous dragon's roar echoed across the heavens. A massive dragon-shaped beast with a human face, bluish-gray skin, gray hair and a body hundreds of meters long, rose into the sky. Its enormous scarlet eyes locked onto the dog demons below. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. That damn mutt went through all that trouble to seal me, but in the end, his own people were the ones who broke the seal. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. The Dragonbone Spirit howled with laughter, amused beyond belief. But tch. It let out a cold snort, its eyes gleaming with killing intent. Don't think that just because you released me, my grudge against you dog demons is over. So noisy. Inyakamai sat atop the clouds, not even bothering to look at it, clearly unfazed. Sesshomaru gripped the hilt of his sword tightly, his eyes grave. This is father's old rival. Psycho's eyes lit up. What a huge beast. Totally worth slashing. Kisara widened her eyes. Is this thing really a dragon? Its size wasn't far off from the original Gastria monsters. Inyakamai waved her hand dismissively. That's just a monster at best, not a real dragon. Alright. Go get your EXP. As soon as she spoke, Psycho and Kisara charged straight at the Dragonbone Spirit without hesitation. Inyakamai's gaze sharpened slightly. She couldn't let Lynn's harem get hurt here. Seeing them rush in, Sesshomaru felt the itch and joined the battle. Clang. Dot. His blade struck the Dragonbone Spirit's body, producing a grating sound. So tough. Sesshomaru frowned. Without some kind of special technique, this thing was hard to handle. No wonder his father sealed it instead of killing it. But watching Psycho and Kisara fearlessly charging in, pride welled up in Sesshomaru's heart. Ever since Inyakamai returned to the clan, she kept saying, from now on, the Dog Demon clan would rise under Lord Lynn's banner. He'd been holding it in. When did the noble dog demons become someone else's mutts? Inyakamai had completely submitted to that man. Now, he, Sesshomaru, was the only one who could uphold the Dog Demon clan's dignity. His eyes turned cold as he charged in again. Tch. The Dragonbone Spirit let out a disdainful snort, completely unfazed by these small fries. Only the woman above the clouds gave him any real pressure. After a while, seeing the timing was right, Inyakamai raised her head and glanced at the crescent moon above. This battle against the Dragonbone Spirit wasn't spontaneous. Since reincarnating as the Moon Eclipse Devil, she hadn't tested her full powers yet. This ends now. Inyakamai suddenly spoke. Psycho and Kisara immediately stopped and retreated. Sesshomaru hesitated but also pulled back. The Dragonbone Spirit raised its head and stared at Inyakamai with blood-red eyes. Finally making a move. She was the only real threat here. But the Dragonbone Spirit wasn't just any beast. It was a legendary creature. Being sealed for a decade didn't weaken it at all. Now, it was at full strength. Roar. It roared again. Torrents of air burst out, shaking the valley. Mountains of rubble flew skyward, disintegrating under its demonic energy. Sesshomaru's pupils shrank. He raised his arm to block the blast, his robes flapping wildly. This bastard was just toying with me. Buzz. The Dragonbone Spirit opened its maw and fired a high-density energy blast at Inyakamai. Sesshomaru's heart clenched. Inuyukamai sat calmly on the clouds, her cold gaze unshaken, not even rising to her feet. Only her lips moved. Tear apart the pitch-black sky, let 8 million knights bow to my blade. The waning moon is the bow of death, the full moon the hammer that shatters fate. We now sing of eternal darkness. Tsukuyomi's hunting grounds, open. Eternal night hunting ceremony. Buzz. The night sky went completely dark, stars vanishing as the moon alone lit the heavens. Moonlight wrapped around Inuyukamai, her already aloof aura turning divine, like a goddess descending. In the next instant, the moon twisted, forming a giant celestial bow. Buzz. A moonlight arrow ripped through the sky and fell. The dragon bone spirit's pupils widened. The arrow filled its vision. You've broken through the monster threshold. Impossible. You stole divine power. The dragon bone spirit wailed as it was engulfed by the arrow of moonlight. Boom. A world-shaking explosion followed. But the area around Inuyukamai remained untouched. Sesshomaru's eyes trembled as he stared at the apocalyptic scene. Divine authority? That's what the dragon bone spirit said. Sesshomaru. Inuyukamai's voice echoed suddenly. Sesshomaru froze. How was the power Lord Lynn bestowed upon me? Sesshomaru's eyes went wide. He trembled involuntarily. Divine authority was actually bestowed by that man. His expression shifted repeatedly before he finally said, Lord Lynn might need monster materials, right? The dragon bone spirit is legendary. Is it okay to destroy it like this? Inuyukamai's face stiffened. She hadn't thought of that. But she looked at Sesshomaru with an odd expression. That switch-up was really fast? Is this what it means to be a grown-up? Still, it was a good thing. She'd already seen through Sesshomaru and the Dog Demon clan's thoughts. Now that she'd become Lynn's subordinate, there was no way she could stay in the Western lands forever. From now on, the Dog Demon clan would be handed to Sesshomaru. But she couldn't let them get any funny ideas. The next day. Psycho, time to level up.